Chapter 303. Chu Feng, Yellow Cattle, and the others were in a small town in the Hunan region. Every breath they exhaled was filled with white mist and even ice shards. Originally, Chu Feng wanted to bring them to Mount Song and the Great Woods Temple, but the Black Yak was unwilling to go no matter what. He didn't want to meet that monkey because he had been beaten up before. Has this villainous heavens gone mad? Can't they leave ordinary people a way out? The Manchurian tiger complained. He was the most resistant to the cold and had always lived in a world of ice and snow. But now, even he was feeling uneasy. One could imagine how the other creatures were feeling. But at this moment they were enjoying themselves quite a bit. They were having a hot pot made of king-level ingredient. The food was piping hot in this world of ice and snow. It was delicious and refreshing. They also had a jug of aged wine. They were somewhat regretful that Chu Feng had killed many sea beasts on Mount Longhu. In the end, he had given up on them because he didn't have the time to collect them. Chu Feng frowned. They were fine in this bitter cold, but how many days could ordinary people last in such an environment? If this continued, it would be a great disaster. Even the great seas had been frozen. How terrifying would this be? Currently, the cold air was spreading toward the land. The weather was extremely vile with the wind and snow. Why do I feel like the heavens are going to destroy the world? Leave behind the mutants and beast races and kill the ordinary creatures, said the Black Yak. That makes sense. This is the beginning of an era of gods and demons. The Donkey King nodded. After transforming into human form, he bared his front teeth and wore a solemn expression. Even Chu Feng and Yellow Ox were shaken. The situation was indeed mysterious and extremely bizarre. To ordinary people, this was the end of the world. It was the end of the world. According to the current situation, as long as this continued for half a month, not to mention the houses, even the buildings would be drowned in the snow. At that time, the power and food supply would gradually be cut off. Would there still be any living creatures after a period of time? This is illogical. Yellow Cattle's words made Chu Feng speechless. Ever since you appeared, the world I live in has become unscientific. Chu Feng couldn't help but say this. Yellow Cattle was also speechless. Through the glass window, it gazed at the snow-white town and the boundless sky filled with fluttering snow. Its large eyes blinked as it pondered. Could it be that there is a force interfering with the evolution? Could it be that there is an invisible hand involved? Yellow Cattle mumbled. Do you know something? Chu Feng asked. Yellow Cattle sighed and said, I'm worried that the holy lands of other worlds want to forcefully descend and use forbidden methods to send their disciples over. That's why the weather is affected. Do they need to go through so much trouble? Can't they just descend? Chu Feng was surprised. Earth isn't a simple place. I've said it before. There are mountains and rivers here that have been stained with divine blood. There are also caves of supreme orthodoxies. There are also sacred trees that make the sects in the outer realm envious. Yellow Cattle brought up the old matter again. He had told Chu Feng all of this before. This place was once incomparably glorious. Demonic sages bathed in blood and the ancestors of immortal orthodoxies passed away here. Can you imagine? Yellow Cattle shook his head. Just a few words were enough to explain the problem. Earth was very special. It's not that those great sects don't want to enter, but rather that they can't. Even if the Earth has declined, it is still very mysterious. They have to act according to the rules here. Yellow Cattle told them that there were all kinds of strange things in this dried-up ancient land. You guys have also seen it. Not to mention the other worlds, even the creatures in the folded space of the Earth have to go through trials to come here. There is only a slim chance of survival. One careless mistake and they will be burned to ashes. Yellow Cattle sighed. It was once very glorious, but now it had declined. This was the current situation of the Earth. However, there were still fortunes here. Even if the withered roots of the sacred trees were buried underground for 100,000 or 1,000,000 years, they could still germinate and recover. Once these plants fully recovered, even the holy lands in the starry skies would become envious. At present, these were all ownerless objects. Additionally, there were other great orthodoxies from the outer realms who wanted to come here to search for the relics under the blood-stained mountains and rivers. Let's put it this way. If the earth fully recovers, it can definitely create several holy land. One has to know that the sacred trees of other worlds all have owners and are all in the great orthodoxies. Only this place is still a land of development. They chatted for a long time and talked about many things. In the end, Chu Feng mentioned the woman from Mount Longhu. He asked Yellow Cattle what realm was she at? Yellow Cattle shook its head. It wasn't clear and couldn't see through that woman. It only felt that she was abnormally powerful. Didn't you say that it's already extraordinary for there to be carefree realm creatures on Earth? Could it be that she isn't in this category? The Manchurian tiger opened its eyes wide. Yellow Cattle's little face was taut and solemn as he said, "I'm talking about the present Earth, not the past. I'm also not talking about the future Earth when it fully recovers and the sacred trees once again flourish. That woman is obviously an ancient evolved being and not a creature that grew up in this environment." Chu Feng's expression also became serious. He wanted Yellow Cattle to speak more clearly and explain the realms above the carefree realm. The black yak and the Manchurian tiger also had expressions of anticipation. "I didn't say it earlier because I didn't want to dampen your enthusiasm. But since you're all at the shackled realm, it's also good to say a bit lest you become complacent," said Yellow Cattle. "The earth is dried up and its energy has dispersed. After so many years, it's no longer suitable for cultivation. Even the earth has lost its spirituality and is as weak as rotten wood." This was Yellow Cattle's evaluation. It could be said that it gave a very low score. In other worlds, the earth contains spirituality and is relatively sturdy. The entire world is full of vitality and contains astonishing energy. The creatures born from such a world are naturally exceptionally powerful. Following that, Yellow Cattle's words were even more shocking and stunned everyone. In the end, Chu Feng and the others even felt helpless and defeated. That was because in some powerful worlds, a palm-sized mouse could kill ordinary humans after arriving on Earth. How shocking was the disparity! This was a blow to the Earthling's self-esteem and left Chu Feng and the others speechless. "Don't give me a blow. Just tell me, what kind of state will the peak experts and carefree realm creatures be in when they arrive in powerful worlds?" The Manchurian tiger asked angrily. Yellow Cattle had once said that on Earth, the three great realms were enough to encompass all evolved creatures, awakened, shackled, and carefree. Among them, the carefree realm was nowhere to be found. "Carefree, a small demon," Yellow Cattle replied. He was very serious and said that it was a homonym. "That's impossible." The black yak was immediately anxious. They were now known as kings and were at the shackled realm. They could already be considered the most powerful creatures on Earth, but in the end, they couldn't even be considered a small demon in other worlds? The Manchurian tiger was also anxious. He said, "Aren't carefree beings able to move unhindered through the firmament and laugh proudly across the four seas? How can the true carefree be a small demon?" They can indeed be considered carefree on Earth. In truth, there are many worlds similar to Earth. If one goes there, the carefree realm creatures can still be carefree and unfettered. If you guys go there, you'll naturally be considered great experts, Yellow Cattle said calmly. The group didn't know what to say. This was too much of a blow. How can the difference be so great? I don't believe it. The Donkey King was full of resentment as he mumbled. I've already said that Earth is ruined and its energy is dried up. It's like a piece of rotten wood that will shatter with the slightest force. Meanwhile, the powerful worlds are like sturdy tree stumps or even metallic stones. They're incomparably sturdy and rich in energy. Yellow Cattle didn't want to discourage them and explained patiently. According to him, those at the Carefree Realm could fly in the sky and tunnel through the earth, but they might not even be able to fly in some powerful world. That's because in those terrifying worlds, the great Tao runs through the firmament and the earth is full of spirituality. The Carefree Realm is very powerful here, but it's difficult to shatter a mountain in those worlds. Yellow Cattle then used Chu Feng as an example. He was currently at 5.5 times the speed of sound, but it was obvious that he wouldn't be able to break through the sound barrier after going to those powerful worlds. He wouldn't even be able to reach twice the speed of sound. Don't tell me I can't even lift a 5,000-kilogram rock in those worlds. Chu Feng stared at Yellow Cattle and said. He had already gotten used to throwing objects weighing tens of thousands of kilograms like sandbags. Yellow Cattle revealed a sympathetic expression and said, "You can't lift it." "Goddamn it, this not only makes one feel defeated, but it also makes one lose all hope." The Manchurian tiger had a tragic and stirring expression. In any case, he was a tyrant here and could look down on a region. If he went to some powerful worlds, he wouldn't even be considered a small demon. That's why you guys always asked me in the past, but I didn't dare tell you. It was indeed a great blow to your confidence, said Yellow Cattle. But he added that there were many opportunities after the Earth's recovery. They could rise together with this place. There were too many fortunes in this ownerless land, and they could grow rapidly. 1 year of cultivation here was equivalent to 10 or even 100 years in other places. The earth was indeed decayed like a rotten piece of wood. It was extremely weak, but the sacred tree wasn't fake. How many realms are there between a small demon and a demonic saint? How many realms are there from a small demon to an evolved bodhisattva? Asked the Black Yak. Not many, Yellow Cattle replied. But no matter how many people asked, he wouldn't say how many realms there were. This immediately made them speechless. That was because they knew that Yellow Cattle was afraid of giving them another blow. It's really not many, but the gap between each realm is a bit big, so I won't say it. Yellow Cattle smiled bashfully. In the eyes of these people, this was simply the smile of a demon. It hurt them. Then tell me, is the world you're from considered very powerful? Asked Chu Feng. Yellow Cattle was very modest and said, it's not very powerful. Within that group, it can only be considered average. Compared to many worlds, it can be considered glorious, but it can't compare to the more powerful legendary worlds. According to what he said, the strength of energy in different worlds was different, and the creatures born in those worlds were innately divided into strong and weak. There were too many worlds, so there were many levels of strength. In some worlds you said that an adult mouse can kill an ordinary adult on Earth. What about you? Are you an adult? The Manchurian tiger wanted to get more information from Yellow Cattle. My nominal age is 5, and my real age is a bit more than 3.5. I'm almost 4. Yellow Cattle looked bashful. You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Are you trying to hurt us? The Manchurian tiger was anxious and his expression was unkind. Chu Feng waved his hand to pacify him. He then asked Yellow Cattle how strong were those powerful holy lands? There are strong and weak worlds, and the strength of the orthodoxies there is naturally obvious. The most powerful orthodoxies are definitely rooted on the most powerful stars in those strongest worlds, but they also have branches in other worlds. Yellow Cattle gave a simple introduction and didn't want to say too much. That was because those were colossal entities. They looked up like lowly ants on the ground gazing at the divine heavenly dragon in the firmament. How strong are the most powerful worlds? The Black Yak didn't give up and asked. I've never been there before, but I've heard some rumors. The most powerful worlds even have strands of primal chaos in their soil. They're firm and immortal. Creatures from other worlds can't move the mountains and rivers there at all. Of course, the prerequisite is that there are ants there. They can even proclaim themselves as kings on Earth. Yellow Cattle told him seriously. I don't want to live anymore. The Black Yak really wanted to roll on the ground. Yellow Cattle consoled him. Don't be discouraged. I've said before that there's an opportunity to become a sage ancestor on Earth. As long as we find it, we'll have the chance to stand on equal footing with the legendary demonic sages. How strong was Earth in the past? Chu Feng asked. Very strong. At its peak, it might have been ranked among the top 100 worlds, Yellow Cattle told him seriously. The Manchurian tiger wasn't satisfied and said, Never reached the strongest? The world's top 10 have been fixed since ancient times, Yellow Cattle said solemnly. Chu Feng was a bit worried about the future. There were many worlds that were as rotten as Earth, and their spiritual energy had dried up. The creatures from those worlds weren't much, but if some of the more powerful beings came over, how could they resist? Earth is very strange. Even demonic sages once shed blood here. Naturally, there's a reason for that. I've told you before that the more powerful beings are, the harder it is to cross over. The difficulty of crossing over will increase by many times. Yellow Cattle wasn't worried. At least, this situation wouldn't change in the short term. Living beings are evolving, and so is the Earth. There are strong and weak worlds, but the Earth is starting to recover now, said Yellow Cattle. Don't think about anything else. Work hard to become a little demon. Seduce fairies, saintesses, and suppress divine sons with the body of a little demon. Sigh, it's so difficult. Chu Feng, the Black Yak, and the Manchurian tiger were immediately drunk. That was because, after understanding the current truth, they discovered that they had only just started. The road to evolution was still very long. Chapter 304. That's why you should cherish the opportunity to be a peerless expert. Otherwise, it would be a tragedy if you enter another world one day and aren't even a minor demon. Yellow Cattle patted the Manchurian tiger's shoulder and knocked on the Black Yak's horn. In a world with powerful energy, not only would the mountains and rivers be sturdy, but the order of heaven and earth would also be perfect. Those who could uproot mountains on earth would be suppressed there. In those powerful worlds, even minor demons were free and unfettered. Yellow Cattle, the Black Yak, and the others left for Mount Kunlun. They braved the ice and snow as they headed west. That was because they had their eyes on that ancient temple in the Himalayas. They wanted to obtain the thunderous breathing technique. No one knew what the current world would be like. No one even knew what the world would become. Would there be prosperity after the ice and snow? It would be difficult for the outer realm orthodoxies to descend, but some of their disciples would be able to pass the trial of life and death. It was only a matter of time before they came. Could it be that the ice and snow were the will of heaven and earth to create an era of gods and demons? Or was it the work of the outer realm orthodoxies? Everything was still unknown. Even Yellow Cattle wasn't sure. What they needed to do was to find ways to make themselves stronger. They couldn't miss out on an ultimate breathing technique that might be found on Earth. I'll go in a few days. Chu Feng had made an appointment with them. He would accompany his parents at Great Wood's temple for a few days before heading west. He would join forces with the old Lama and the others to charge into the thunderous temple. There were many temples on Mount Song. Standing here and gazing into the distance, one could see a vast expanse of whiteness covered in snow and wind. Chu Feng frowned. He didn't know when the snow would stop. The old ape appeared without a sound. His senses were sharp. He stood on the peak and sighed. The will of the heavens is unfathomable. There will only be prosperity after destruction. Senior Ape, I'll stay here and wait for the Vajra Bodhi tree to recover completely. Chu Feng laughed. The old ape's expression darkened. The Vajra Bodhi tree was in a terrible state. The leaves on its head had shrunk and turned into sprouts, following which they withered and became bald. Even if they used a greenhouse to block the ice and snow and used a brazier to raise the temperature, it was still useless. Chu Feng and Wang Jing had long since become mutants. Although they had to face the bitter cold, they were not affected by it. This made Chu Feng feel completely relieved. The news of Chu Feng's arrival at Dalan Temple spread like wildfire. People kept coming to visit him, mainly because he had made a name for himself in the Battle of Mount Longhu. The snowstorm had a limited effect on the powerful evolvers. Many people even wandered around the famed mountains in the snowstorm to see if there would be any changes. Marshal Uncle Chu, the Black Wolf King invites you to a banquet. Chu Feng had just sent off a group of people when a little ape came to report that someone had invited him out. Moreover, it was a wolf king. Alright, let's go take a look. Chu Feng agreed. The snow had sealed the mountain, and he had nothing better to do. It would be good for him to interact with these beast kings. At the foot of the mountain, there was a mutated bird with a bright red body. This was a mutated chickadee. It was dozens of meters long and had a small palace on its back. It was waiting here to welcome Chu Feng to the banquet. The Black Wolf King's cave was located on Mount White Cloud in the Hunan region. The scenery here was originally beautiful and had the reputation of being a paradise on earth. But now one could only see pure white snow. The mountains and rivers were completely covered. The Black Wolf King's cave was very spacious and the interior was splendid. It was said that it used to be a wolf cave, but now it had been rebuilt into a magnificent place. The interior was very exquisite. There were pavilions, stone arches, small bridges, fountains, and all kinds of strange plants. Even in a world of ice and snow, the inside of the cave was as warm as spring. Chu Feng was speechless. He was thinking that this place used to be an ordinary wolf's den, but now it had such an atmosphere. It was really unexpected. King Chu, although I'm a werewolf, I have nothing to do with the Ash Wolf. The Black Wolf King hurriedly tried to explain himself as soon as they met, afraid that Chu Feng would make a connection. Chu Feng laughed involuntarily. He could only nod and say that this was a different matter. He would never implicate the innocent. The Black Wolf King clapped his hands. Immediately, a few half-transformed beast race members brought in delicacies and wine jars, placing them on the jade table. Following that, a group of demonesses appeared. It was obvious that they were transformed from the beast race. All of them were quite beautiful and flirtatious. Only, some of them had furry cat ears, while others had fluffy tails that swayed back and forth. The group of charming demonesses sang and danced here to liven up the mood. Brother Chu, something big has happened. The Black Wolf King raised a toast to Chu Feng and lowered his voice in a secretive manner. What's the matter? Chu Feng put down his wine cup. He had come here because he wanted to be down to earth and understand the current state of the beast race. Could it be that he had heard some secret news? I heard a piece of news. Is the ice and snow related to the sea? The Black Wolf King informed. Oh! Rumor has it that marine race experts discovered a mysterious sea. There are ruins and altars there. They were offering sacrifices there, but in the end, they attracted a great calamity and caused the sky to be filled with ice and snow. Chu Feng was immediately dumbfounded. Was there such a thing? The Black Wolf King said. There are also marine race experts who say that there are people at the bottom of the sea who colluded with the outer realm beings to help them descend. They did as they were told and caused the heaven and earth changes to intensify, leading to the arrival of the cold wind and snow. Chu Feng frowned. The cold wave this time had indeed spread from the sea. Could it be related to the marine race? But wasn't this just inviting a wolf into the house? Don't worry. It's said that the experts at the bottom of the sea are furious and have stopped everything. They are currently hunting down the people involved in this matter. I'm sure the snow and wind will stop in the end. Chu Feng couldn't confirm the authenticity of this news, but he felt that it wasn't groundless. This trip could be considered worthwhile. In the end, when Chu Feng was feeling tipsy, the Black Wolf King greeted him warmly and indicated to the female seductresses to bring Chu Feng to rest. Forget it, I'm still busy. The powerful fairies and saintesses are about to descend. I have to go prepare to take them in. Chu Feng stopped them and said with a laugh. These female seductresses were too enthusiastic. He really couldn't handle them and quickly left. Chu Feng didn't refuse any of the following banquet. He would rush over to all the king-level invitations that weren't too far away. The one that made him feel the most embarrassed was the Fox Fairy's invitation. She was truly an extraordinarily beautiful woman. Perhaps she couldn't be considered a peerless beauty, but she was charming and moving. Her enthusiasm made Chu Feng flee directly. That was because the cave dwelling was full of female seductresses. Moreover, they were all dressed in white clothes. Not only were they pouring wine, but they were even served food. Needless to say, there were only massages on his shoulders and legs. The atmosphere was excessively charming and gentle. Those fiery gazes made Chu Feng flee without a trace after a short while. This was the first time a beast king had made him flee without a fight. Moreover, he was in such a sorry state. He was drenched in sweat. Even after running out and standing in the snow for a long time, his blood was still boiling. The news leaked out and became a joke. No one had expected Demon King Chu to have stage fright. "Brother, are you okay? What's there to run away from?" The distant Manchurian tiger had heard of this and was looking down on him. Chu Feng was so angry that smoke was almost coming out of his nose. He really wanted to find that fox fairy and settle the score. How could she speak of such things so carelessly? "Hey, Chu Feng, I heard your kidneys are weak?" Even Jiang Luotian had maliciously sent him a text message to attack him. The main reason was that the two of them had inexplicably slept in the same bed last time. This made her very unhappy. No matter what was said, she had suffered a great loss. In the end, this fellow acted as if nothing had happened. Not only did he not apologize, he even stopped contacting her recently. "If you dare speak nonsense again, I'll go to Mount Putuo and bring disaster upon you," Chu Feng threatened with a dark expression. "Boss, we've purchased 1,000-year knotweed." The clairaudient Ouyang Qin contacted him. "What do you mean?" Chu Feng was puzzled. "It's said that this can cure kidney deficiency." "Get lost." Chu Feng fiercely ended the call. He wanted nothing more than to run off and exterminate that nest of foxes. During these days, the snowstorm was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. Fortunately, it didn't fall violently all the time. This was a great fortune amidst the misfortune. One could clearly feel that Chu Feng's status had risen sharply after the battle at Mount Longhu. The various beast race kings invited him one after another, clearly expressing their goodwill. Even those races that had grudges against him in the past were lowering their heads and trying to find someone to make peace with. They were afraid that he would kill them one day in a bad mood. Within the Jiangxi region, most of the beast race kings who had besieged Chu Feng in the middle of the night had been executed. Only two were still alive, the Monkey King and the Bird King. Now, these two kings had taken the initiative to contact Chu Feng and lowered their heads in submission. They expressed that they would follow him and listen to his orders as long as he didn't kill them. Chu Feng was astonished. He had deeply experienced the effects of the battle at Mount Longhu. Apparently, the two kings had been alarmed recently and couldn't bear it any longer. Later on, people from the corporations came knocking with rare gifts, including fist manuals and ancient weapons. They were still worried that Chu Feng would settle accounts with them. After several days of recuperation, the Hollow Jade Temple Master's heart and injuries had recovered. This was mainly due to the miraculous effects of the stone fruit. "Chu Feng, thank you for saving the Temple Master." Lu Tong spoke to Chu Feng and expressed his gratitude. Additionally, he told Chu Feng that he could make a trip to the Hollow Jade Temple. There was a strange treasure here that no one could see through. This was something the Hollow Jade Temple Master had obtained on Mount Longhu. It shone brilliantly but eventually dimmed and became completely silent. Many people had been invited to observe it, but none of them could figure out its depth. The Hollow Jade Temple Master told Lu Tong that Chu Feng could also come and take a look if he was interested. Chu Feng will be leaving for the Himalayas in a few days. You can come now. Yellow Cattle informed Chu Feng that they were about to set out. Very well, I'll make a trip to Shuntian first and then head west, Chu Feng replied. There was a distance of 7,000 to 8,000 kilometers between Mount Song and Shuntian. This wasn't a problem for the current Chu Feng. He was astonishingly fast even with the wind and snow obstructing his way. He passed through the snow and mist, traversed the mountains and ridges, and even so, arrived in less than 2 hours. At this time, someone contacted him. It was the old mountain tortoise, who told him that he had made a divination. This world was similar to the evolution of all living things. It would flourish and decline after extreme, and then prosper after destruction. Chu Feng was baffled. Hadn't the meteorologists and biologists already said that this world would undergo a great destruction and then prosper? He entered the Hollow Jade Temple and met Lu Tong. The old man was very cordial. This time, the Hollow Jade Temple Master also appeared to greet him and express his gratitude. It was all thanks to Chu Feng's rescue that he would have died on Mount Longhu otherwise. Afterwards, he passed the treasure to Chu Feng. Chapter 305. It was a piece of exquisite jade, but there were cracks and indescribable marks on it. It seemed to be bearing the mark of time. Chu Feng was moved. This was an ancient piece of jade. He immediately thought of the 2 pieces of jade containing the demon flood dragon fist. They were somewhat similar. It was warm and smooth to the touch. There was nothing special about it. He looked at it against the light source and saw some black veined patterns resembling vines. Chu Feng looked at it again and felt somewhat disappointed. He felt that it should be different from the jade containing the demon flood dragon fist. The demon rock fist was on par with the demon ox fist and the demon flood dragon fist. He yearned to collect them, but after careful consideration, he felt that it wasn't too realistic. How could he coincidentally encounter one on Mount Longhu? He asked the Hollow Jade Temple Master about the special features of this jade. At first, it could float in the air and emit a faint light. But later on, it became completely dark and no longer had any abnormalities. The Hollow Jade Temple Master replied truthfully. Back then, many people clicked their tongues in wonder but couldn't figure it out. Have you used your spiritual power to investigate it? Chu Feng asked. Yes, there's some strange energy inside, but I can't draw it out. It's very strange. The Hollow Jade Temple Master frowned. Very well, let me take a look. Chu Feng was somewhat expectant. After all, this was a strange treasure brought out from the ancestral court of Taoism. No matter how one looked at it, a jade stone that could automatically float in the air and emit light was definitely not an ordinary item. Be careful. Lu Tong reminded him not to be careless. What can happen with me here? The Hollow Jade Temple Master shot a glance at the old man. Lu Tong was embarrassed and didn't say anything else. Chu Feng naturally didn't dare to be careless. It was hard to say what was so strange about this ancient jade. However, the Hollow Jade Temple Master and the 8 Visions Temple Master had already investigated it. There shouldn't be any danger. He held the jade in his hand and carefully sent his spiritual power into it. He was immediately astonished. The black energy came in clusters in the shape of flowers and plants. There were even Bodhi trees, hibiscus trees, osmanthus trees, etc. These weren't ordinary trees. Unfortunately, they were all black and only had the same shape. Chu Feng was very cautious. He walked inside and tried to guide it, but the black substance didn't have any abnormal reactions. Later on, he sent a large amount of spiritual energy into the main jade stone and carefully sensed it. He actually sensed a wisp of vitality, as if there was a life form inside. This made him shocked. It was just a piece of ancient jade, how could it be like this? Chu Feng's divine sense was sharper than that of ordinary people. The fusion of his physical body and mental energy seemed to be able to nourish his divine sense. Now, it was getting stronger and stronger. He was sure that he could faintly feel it. He was about to retreat and pull out his spiritual power. However, a shocking change happened at this moment. The black plants within the jade stone all moved, releasing King Chong's sounds as they condensed into a black sword. In the blink of an eye, the interior of the entire piece of jade became extremely strange. This was clearly a material piece of jade, yet now it seemed to have formed an open space that allowed one's mind to reside within, and it was very much like a palace. It was too strange, mysteriously formed. Chu Feng wanted to retreat, but he felt a slight pain in his spirit. The black sword was glowing and pointed at him from afar. Sigh! A sigh was heard, causing Chu Feng's hair to stand on end. Even though his spirit was here, he still felt a chill run down his spine. Who's there? He had a bad premonition. Chu Feng's first reaction was to be on guard. Although it was only his spiritual power, he condensed it into a human form and circulated his breathing technique in accordance with his physical body. He was prepared to fight and retreat. Ah, we meet again. At this time, a figure appeared on the black sword. He looked somewhat miserable as the sword had pierced through him and seemed unable to break free. It's you. Chu Feng was astonished. He had never thought he would see an old friend in a piece of ancient jade. He's surprised, right? The black sword pierced through the man's heart as if it had nailed him there. Strands of spiritual energy seeped out from the black sword and reassembled on the man's body, making him seem even more solid. Although he was an old man, he possessed the spirit of a lion king. His hair was curled and his eyes were sharp as he stared fixedly at Chu Feng. He was actually Schiller, a man who had been dead for a long time. Schiller was known as the Last Knight. He had once laid down a trap at the Vatican and caused a world-shaking massacre. He had killed many kings and then organized an expedition to the east. He was powerful, ruthless, and a difficult character to deal with. He had almost cost Chu Feng his life many times. But in the end, Schiller was killed on Mount Longhu and died with a grievance. Who would have thought he would appear again? Chu Feng recalled many things. During the battle on Mount Longhu, Schiller had picked up a strange broken sword and used it to clash with the diamond chakram. In the end, a blinding radiance flooded the area and the broken sword disappeared. At that time, Chu Feng and the others destroyed Schiller's body. They searched for a long time but couldn't find the broken sword. In the end, they left. Did that broken sword protect your spirit? Chu Feng asked in an attempt to calm him down. Don't try to escape. Schiller looked at him calmly. He didn't seem to feel anything after being pierced by the black sword. Do you think you can keep me here? Chu Feng said as he retreated. Don't act rashly. Talk with me for a bit or I'll self-destruct. When the black substance surges out, this place will be destroyed, Schiller said coldly. Chu Feng was shaken. He wasn't afraid of Schiller. At this point, he could fight against experts with 6 severed shackles. However, he was apprehensive of that black sword. He felt uneasy as though he had fallen into an indescribable, hopeless situation. This black sword is a rare material that can be considered priceless. It's used by divine knights to temper themselves. According to Eastern standards, divine knights are equivalent to golden arhats, Schiller explained. What are you trying to say? Chu Feng stared at him intently. Long story short, this black substance is extremely rare. It was refined from the cosmos by demonic sages and given to their descendants to temper their true bodies. However, the prerequisite is that you have the qualifications to use it. If you don't reach that level, it's a fatal poison. Schiller sighed regretfully. He caressed the black sword with his hand and then looked at himself. He shook his head with a bitter smile. He had unexpectedly found this legendary material but didn't have the fortune to enjoy it. So, you've been harmed by it and are about to die? Chu Feng gazed at the black sword. Just what kind of strange substance was it? Yes, I don't have long to live, Schiller admitted calmly. This black substance was extremely bizarre. It was like energy but also like a spiritual body. It was actually a material object that could be integrated into a weapon. The owner of the broken sword was a powerful knight who used this black substance to temper himself. However, he died on Mount Longhu during the Eastern Punitive Expedition. Schiller's spirit rushed into the broken sword, allowing him to escape Chu Feng's killing blow. However, he was also consigned to eternal damnation. He was still far from becoming a divine knight. This black substance was fatal to him and wanted to corrode him. There was no way he could escape unless he died. He had once charged out of Mount Longhu to hypnotize ordinary people and steal their physical bodies. He then inserted his spirit into them, but it was useless. Under the tempering of the black substance, the ordinary body soon disintegrated. Later on, he stole the bodies of powerful evolved beings and was able to hold on for a longer period of time. Unfortunately, it was still going to disintegrate in the end. Moreover, his spirit was also deteriorating and would dissipate sooner or later. Yes, I was the one who spread the news that you have a peerless breathing technique and caused the kings to hunt you down in Jiangxi, Schiller said calmly. Chu Feng was furious and wanted to punch him to death. The storm in Jiangxi had caused too great of an impact and almost killed him. The mastermind was actually Schiller. He was still trying to guess who had spread the news and lured the world to hunt him down. You're really a ghost. You almost killed me in the Western world when you were alive. Even in death, you won't stop. Schiller corrected after hearing this. I'm not dead yet. You're about to die. Chu Feng shouted. Wrong, I'm about to be freed. You'll take my place and be entangled by the black substance. Schiller smiled. I don't understand. Why didn't you harm the Hollow Jade Temple Master? Chu Feng asked in a deep voice. This made him feel uneasy. Why don't you take a guess? Schiller laughed loudly. Chu Feng's expression was gloomy as he stared coldly at Schiller. Although this was only a spiritual manifestation, it was no different from a real person. That's because this substance won't rest until you die. Either you destroy it or it destroys you. I only have one chance to harm someone. Naturally, I want to drag you down with me. You're really patient. Chu Feng realized that he was in danger. Today, he might suffer a great setback or even die here. Schiller smiled. Yes, I've waited long and hard. I knew you'd go to Mount Longhu, so I hid in a piece of jade and waited patiently. At the same time, I was calculating how long I could live in this world. Later on, I saw the Hollow Jade Temple Master arrive. I knew I could fall into his hands before coming to contact you. You hate me that much? Chu Feng retreated. Yes, if not for you, my myriad spirit blood medicine would have matured long ago. Today, I'm an expert with 7 severed shackles and the #1 expert on the continent. At that time, all the divine fruits in the famed mountains and great rivers would be mine. Who could compete with me? You've severed my path to godhood. Schiller spoke calmly, but his words were filled with resentment. My spirit has been corroded to the point of death. I'm glad to see you again. Does the Hollow Jade Temple Master know you're in the jade? Chu Feng asked. With his intelligence and strength, he should have sensed something, Schiller said with a smile. You're still trying to sow discord on your deathbed? Chu Feng said coldly. I'm glad to see you again. I'm finally free. Goodbye, I'll leave the suffering to you. Schiller laughed heartily. He was burning his own body, determined to destroy his spirit that had been corroded beyond recognition. At the same time, Chu Feng let out a furious roar and retreated with extreme speed. He wanted to tear this strange space apart. It's useless. After I die, all the black substance will entangle you, Schiller said with a smile. Then, he exploded with a boom. At the same time, the sword transformed into a black substance which spread in all directions. It came into contact with Chu Feng and entangled him. Only the Bodhisattva among the evolved beings can purify it for you. Otherwise, you should enjoy it. This thing is very precious and priceless. It's the work of a demonic saint. Only they can refine it. Schiller's remnant will finally disappear. His last words were like the ramblings of a devil. Chapter 306. Schiller's death could also be considered a form of release. He had been corroded by the black substance for such a long time and had suffered endless pain. Now, his spirit was completely extinguished. Chu Feng had no choice but to admit that this person was a ruthless character. If not for the unexpected interruption, no one on the continent would have been able to suppress him. Even now, Schiller's death was a great hindrance to Chu Feng. The black substance came into contact with Chu Feng's spirit. It was as though the Qiantang River had breached its dike. Chu Feng was drowned in the black light with no way to evade. Chu Feng exerted all his strength to force his spiritual body out of this strange space. Afterward, the entire piece of jade exploded, forming a blinding ball of light within the hollow jade temple. Chu Feng, what happened to you? Lu Tong cried out in alarm. The old man turned deathly pale at this moment. This unforeseen event was too sudden. The jade disintegrated and burned fiercely, illuminating the entire hollow jade temple. One could see that Chu Feng's spiritual body was in great pain. It was wrapped up by the black substance, and was struggling violently like a drowning man. Lu Tong was anxious. He had been stroking his beard, but now he tore off half of it. He rushed over to help Chu Feng get rid of the black substance. "Don't touch him, retreat!" the hollow jade temple master shouted. Chu Feng's spiritual body glowed and entangled with the black substance. The struggle was extremely intense, and his spiritual energy surged up and down like a mountain torrent. In the blink of an eye, the tables, chairs, and weapon racks all floated up into the air. They collided rapidly and exploded into fine powder. Chu Feng's spiritual energy was wreaking havoc as it fought against the black substance. However, he was unable to break free and cleanly expel it. At this time, a portion of the black substance broke away from his spiritual body and entered his physical body. The black substance was very odd. It had sensed that the physical body and Chu Feng's spirit were one and had split off a portion to rush over. Chu Feng knew that he had no way to break free for the time being. Schiller's fate might very well be his tomorrow. His spiritual body entered his physical body, and the area regained its tranquility. Many people in the distance were shocked to see their weapons torn to shreds and the broken steel walls several meters away. How could Chu Feng's spiritual force be so terrifying? Everyone revealed looks of awe and veneration. "Chu Feng, how are you now?" Lu Tong was filled with anxiety. He realized that he might have harmed Chu Feng this time. He really shouldn't have allowed him to come to the hollow jade temple. Chu Feng didn't say a word. He just wanted to leave because he didn't know what kind of chain reaction it would cause if the fact that there was a big problem with his body was exposed. Huh! Chu Feng was shocked. In just a moment, the energy in his body became sluggish, and the translucent blood channels in his body seemed to be blocked. This was too fast. The black substance was evenly distributed all over his body, from his muscles to his bones. It was everywhere. This speed of corrosion was a little scary. Relatively speaking, his mental energy was also entangled, but it was not completely covered by the black substance. Chu Feng forcefully circulated the energy in his body. His body shone, and violent fluctuations spread out. The 3-foot-thick wall in front of him was torn apart. The scene was terrifying, but he knew that he was doomed. That was because he originally didn't want to cause such a big commotion and wanted to leave calmly. But just now, he had lost control. When he circulated the energy in his body with all his might, it didn't flow within his body. Instead, it directly rushed out of his body. His pores were glowing and were no longer holy. Instead, they were gushing with a strange black light. One could see that the surface of his body was dark. It looked like the protective radiance of an unbreakable body, but in truth, it was a manifestation of his terrible condition. In an instant, not only were his bones and muscles infected, but even the energy in his body was mixed with the mysterious substance and fused into one. Chu Feng, you've encountered a big problem. Don't move recklessly. The hollow jade temple master spoke. His eyes were clear and profound. He looked to be in his 40s and exuded a dignified aura. Chu Feng was silent. His thoughts were running at lightning speed. Now was not the time to leave. Lu Tong's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. He disregarded everything and rushed over to grab one of Chu Feng's arms. He was not afraid of being corroded by the black light and wanted to find out what was going on. What the hell is this? How did this happen? Lu Tong was normally like an old fox, but now he was badly battered and had lost his sense of propriety. There were many mutants in the hollow jade temple. The commotion here was simply too great. Many of them approached and revealed astonished expressions. At present, Chu Feng's name had shaken the world and intimidated all races. Mentioning Chu Feng's name in the outside world was even more intimidating than mentioning the hollow jade temple. All the kings were apprehensive. This was something everyone in the temple could sense. In the past, when they went out, some of the powerful beast race members were very arrogant and even hostile. But now they were all very polite. Today they were observing Demon King Chu at such a close distance. Many of them felt complicated and somewhat excited. Some of the young female evolved beings had peculiar expressions in their eyes. Their rippling eyes stared fixedly at the silent and calm young man. Something might have happened to Chu Feng, one of the mutants whispered, informing the people who had just arrived. Something happened? How is that possible? Many people are saying that he can compete for the position of the world's #1 expert. Who can harm him? Moreover, this is the hollow jade temple. The situation isn't good. There's something wrong with the ancient jade the temple master brought back. Chu Feng is covered in a layer of black radiance. The problem seems very serious. Nearby, some people were whispering to each other. The hollow jade temple master glanced coldly at them. The whispering mutants immediately shut their mouths, not daring to speak further. Lu Tong tried again and again but gave up after a dozen or so attempts. His energy was repelled by the black substance after entering Chu Feng's body. He couldn't cleanse or sort it out. Chu Feng gestured for him to withdraw. He stood in place without moving and closed his eyes to observe the situation within his body. He realized why Schiller only kept his spiritual body. He was unwilling to continue tormenting others when he could seize their bodies. That was because this black substance had a greater effect on the physical body than on the spirit. The energy within his body was circulating very slowly. It was as if he was walking through a swamp, and it was becoming increasingly difficult. His spirit had also been corroded, but it could still be operated. It wasn't as depressing as before. However, he discovered a problem when he wanted to use the imperial sword technique. His spirit was suffering from a stabbing pain. It was extremely uncomfortable because the black substance within his spiritual energy had turned into a sword and pierced through his spiritual body. The scarlet flying sword circled around Chu Feng like a scarlet flood dragon soaring through the air. Sword chi tore through the air and, in the end, the palm-sized, sparkling and translucent sword disappeared into his sleeve. It was only a short moment, but his spiritual body felt as if it was being torn apart. "Prepare a quiet room for me," Chu Feng said. He knew it wasn't a good time to leave. He had wanted to leave quietly at first, but he hadn't expected the black substance within his body to be so tyrannical. It immediately went out of control and revealed his true state. It was hard to imagine what kind of consequences would arise if news of his body's problems were to spread to the outside world. Perhaps those corporations and their enemies among the beast race would heave a sigh of relief. There might even be a series of unpredictable events that would occur in succession. Seal off all information. No one is to leak what happened here today. The Hollow Jade Temple Master issued the order. He possessed an innate dignified aura. Although he was already middle-aged, he was still as heroic as ever. His eyes were as sharp as lightning as they swept through everyone. Chu Feng was sitting within a quiet secret room. He tried once again to expel the black substance, but it was to no avail. He spread his spiritual energy throughout his body and circulated the mysterious breathing technique. In the end, the surface of his body glowed with a black radiance, but he still couldn't expel the black substance. Lu Tong had been following him all along. His heart was filled with guilt and incomparable regret. He felt that he shouldn't have invited Chu Feng back. Otherwise, such a thing wouldn't have happened. Let us see if there's a solution. The Hollow Jade Temple Master had arrived. He had also invited the 8 Visions Temple Master and the Roaming Jade Temple Master. Thank you. Chu Feng nodded. He sat within the quiet room and allowed the 3 experts to operate their technique. The 8 Visions Temple Master had an aloof and indifferent attitude. He had lost an arm at Mount Longhu and couldn't reattach it. However, it wasn't as if there was no hope. Perhaps there would be a ray of hope when he evolved again. The blood energy within the Roaming Jade Temple Master's body surged like the seas. He was normally very powerful, but now his eyes were like lightning. He placed his hands on Chu Feng's body and carefully sensed it. The 3 experts operated their techniques together to study the black substance within Chu Feng's body. They also tried to cleanse it but failed in the end. There was no way to expel it. It's very troublesome. This black substance reverses the power of evolution and might cause one to degenerate. It's hard to fathom, said the 8 Visions Temple Master. At this point, Chu Feng didn't hide anything. He told them everything about his encounter within the Jade Stone. He also hoped to borrow the power of the 3 experts to resolve this calamity. But now it seemed useless. The 3 of them working together had no effect. Let's go flip through the Taoist scriptures and various ancient texts to see if there's a solution, said the Roaming Jade Temple Master. For now, it's best not to contact the outside world, including Kunlun. Everything must be kept secret. The Hollow Jade Temple Master warned Chu Feng before leaving. The place quieted down after the 3 left. Lu Tong blamed himself and wanted nothing more than to bang his head against the wall. His expression was extremely unsightly. Yellow Cattle, something happened to me. Chu Feng contacted Yellow Cattle. He stood outside the Hollow Jade Temple, braving the wind and snow as he gazed at the hazy, frosty sky. At this moment, his body still couldn't feel the cold. Even though the black substance had invaded his muscles, skin, and bones, his strength was still there. However, there was a kind of desolate feeling in his heart. This was the first time he felt a sense of helplessness. That was because his world was about to be turned upside down and undergo great changes. The news of Chu Feng's arrival in Shuntian had already spread far and wide. This was no secret. During the following 2 days, countless calls piled up into a pile. So much so that some great demon kings rushed over from the famed mountains to meet him. Their words were filled with fervor and respect when they invited people to inform them. Some major corporations immediately prepared generous gifts. Their upper echelons personally set out to visit the Hollow Jade Temple and meet with Chu Feng. In truth, they had already expressed their intentions before, but it was all in a probing manner. They had sent people to contact Chu Feng on his way back. But now it was very formal. All of them were the biggest powers in the world, and all of them were big shot. After the battle at Mount Longhu, Chu Feng's accomplishments had shocked the world. All parties were apprehensive and had no choice but to acknowledge him. Chapter 307. The weather was extremely bad. Heavy snow swirled in the air, and some places were as low as -10 degrees. The cold was bone-chilling, but the travel of mutants was not affected. The hollow jade temple was bustling with activity. People would come to visit from time to time, hoping to meet Chu Feng. They didn't know Chu Feng's current state. Lu Tong appeared and tactfully informed Chu Feng that he was comprehending an ancient fist manual and had reached a critical juncture. It wasn't appropriate for him to interrupt the meeting. "No problem, we can wait. Please forgive us for disturbing you." A white-haired old demon cupped his hands politely and left with a face full of smiles. "Am I seeing things? That's an old monster from Mount Changbai. He's also here. That's the king of the Northeast who has long since severed his 6th shackle. He rarely leaves the Northeast." Someone whispered after recognizing the old man's identity. He was actually a peerless expert. Few people knew what his true form was, only that his cultivation was profound. There were many people in front of the hollow jade temple. Most of them wanted to visit Chu Feng. They were deeply surprised that even the old monster from Changbai had come. It was difficult for ordinary people to go out due to the cold weather. However, there was an endless stream of carriages and horses in front of the hollow jade temple. Many demon kings from all over the world had come to visit. Some corporations had found out that Chu Feng was studying fist technique. They immediately sent over the personal notes and insights of their predecessors. They were absolutely precious. Chu Feng stood in front of the window and sighed. Would the people take back the notes and manuals after learning of his current state? He was well aware of the fickleness of human nature. What people cared about now was his combat strength. What reason would they have to pay him a visit if he were to lose all of that? He had long since spoken to the yellow cattle. The 2 oxen were extremely anxious. Yellow cattle told him not to worry and that there might still be a chance to turn things around. It had been collecting king-level blood in Mount Kunlun for the past 2 days, and would soon arrive at Shuntian to cleanse Chu Feng's spirit and body. Chu Feng was truly unreconciled. He once again circulated his breathing technique and merged his spiritual energy into his blood. Starting from his heart, it spread to every part of his body. In the end, his blood turned black. The most serious change was that his heart was flickering with a black light and was no longer sparkling red. "My heart has turned black." Chu Feng mocked himself. This was really ironic. Lu Tong came and told Chu Feng that he had already contacted the best human potential laboratory in the country. They would perform a full body check on him to see if there was a way to eradicate the black substance. The hollow jade temple master was also present. He reassured Chu Feng that he would follow along and help the people in the laboratory diagnose and treat him. Chu Feng frowned. It was not that he did not believe in science, but all kinds of living things were evolving in this world, and medical diagnostics could not keep up with the pace of evolution. However, in the end, he still went. He did not want to waste Lu Tong's good intentions. They secretly set out and arrived at a famous laboratory. Previously, a portion of the king-level flesh and blood had been handed over to this place for testing and research. Chu Feng laid there as all sorts of advanced equipment lit up. It was almost like something out of a sci-fi movie as they scanned his entire body. He felt like he was an object being examined from the inside out. His blood was drawn several times to detect the black substance in his body. The people in the laboratory frowned in astonishment after the various data came out. Chu Feng's constitution was simply too good. He didn't seem like a human at all. He was practically a demonic god. If news of this were to spread, it would certainly cause a huge commotion. However, they had no way to extract the black substance. They wanted to extract it from his blood, but before they could do so, the black substance evaporated into a wisp of mist and re-entered Chu Feng's body. In the end, Chu Feng was sent into a sealed spherical apparatus where his blood was automatically scanned and collected. Not long after, the people in the laboratory injected medicine refined from mutant fruits into his body to increase his physical activity. In the end, the medicine was ineffective and was directly expelled through his pores. His constitution possessed astonishing resistance to reverse evolution. After many tests, the person in charge of the laboratory was sweating profusely. He told Lu Tong and the Hollow Jade Temple Master that the black substance's reverse evolution was fatal to mutants and mutants. At the very least, they couldn't deal with it with their current method. Lu Tong sat there motionlessly. His complexion was pale and his head was lowered without a word. At this time, the Hollow Jade Temple Master received news from the Eight Visions Temple Master that he had gained a deeper understanding of the black substance. During these 2 days, the 3 Temple Masters had ordered people to flip through all kinds of ancient texts, ranging from the Taoist canon to the secret manuscripts left behind by senior Buddhist monks and all kinds of ancient texts. A rare substance from the depths of the universe refined by a demonic sage. It's priceless. Even the secret texts of Taoism might not necessarily be able to obtain it. The Hollow Jade Temple Master was astonished. Although he had heard Chu Feng briefly mention that the black substance was miraculous for golden arhats and divine knights, he didn't expect it to be so valuable. Very soon, the Eight Visions Temple Master informed him of some information that was collated from ancient texts and pieced together from various clues. This black substance was a treasure that all evolved beings yearned for even in their dreams. Who had the most abundant collection at present? Naturally, it was the country. The Eight Visions Temple, the Hollow Jade Temple, and the Roaming Jade Temple were the 3 great mutant organizations within the country. Their ancient texts and rare Taoist texts were all open to them. In just 2 days, many people were ordered to flip through all kinds of ancient texts and actually found all kinds of clues. So much so that they even found the personal notes of a certain heavenly master when sorting out the ancient text. Among the notes was the master's praise for the black substance. That heavenly master had once said that he wouldn't even exchange a single copper coin for a gourd of dragon tiger golden pills. In ancient times, 1 caddy was 16 taels and a copper coin was only 1/10 of a tael. The Dragon Tiger Golden Pill was the most famous divine pill of ancient times. It was known as a rare and precious divine medicine. The founder of Mount Longhu, Zhang Daoling, had successfully refined a furnace of Dragon Tiger Golden Pills and thus evolved to its peak state. Heavenly masters from other eras would find it difficult to refine Dragon Tiger Golden Pills. Even a heavenly master of an ancient evolved being praised so highly, claiming that even a gourd of Dragon Tiger Golden Pills couldn't be exchanged for a single copper coin. This was truly shocking. The master of the Eight Visions Temple and the master of the Hollow Jade Temple were shaken to learn of this shocking news from the Celestial Master's letter. Of course, they also understood that the requirements for evolved beings were extremely high. One had to reach a certain level in order to refine the dark substance. Otherwise, it would become a poison. According to the ancient Taoist records, Chu Feng has been crippled. His path of evolution has already been reversed. There's no more hope. The Eight Visions Temple Master had also arrived. The Hollow Jade Temple Master instructed the laboratory staff to find a way to extract the black substance. No matter what method they used, they had to succeed regardless of the cost. This is somewhat difficult. We've already extracted a lot of blood samples, but before we could separate them, the black substance has already flowed out and returned to the patient's body. The laboratory manager explained that it wouldn't work even if it was sealed in a container. The black substance was extremely strange and could penetrate glass containers, steel cans, and all other materials. Extract some blood and inject it into another organism's body. See if we can retain the black substance, the Hollow Jade Temple Master said. That's Chu Feng we're talking about. Is it appropriate to extract blood like this? The laboratory manager's forehead was dripping with sweat. This was no ordinary experiment. Would Chu Feng be willing to do such a thing? This concerns a great secret on the path of evolution. I believe Chu Feng won't object if he learns of this. We lack a peerless expert on our side, so we need him to pay a price, the Hollow Jade Temple Master said. One day later, Chu Feng was furious. What did this laboratory think he was? A guinea pig? Who knew how much blood had been extracted in a short span of 20 hours? With a bang, he kicked the experimental apparatus and shattered the steel plate. He walked out of the sealed laboratory with an ugly expression. Lu Tong appeared immediately after receiving the news. He was furious after understanding the situation and sent the laboratory manager flying with a kick. He pointed at the latter's nose and cursed, "Old Li, I've sent you so many king-level entity blood samples in the past to support you. But have you become addicted to experiments and forgotten your roots? How dare you target Chu Feng like this?" The laboratory manager felt that he was in the wrong. He stood there and wanted to say something, but in the end, he could only say that he couldn't deal with the black substance at the moment. "Old Li, do you think that Chu Feng's illness can't be cured, and that's why you dare to act so unscrupulously?" Lu Tong cursed and tried his best to calm Chu Feng's anger. The Hollow Jade Temple Master arrived. He glanced at Chu Feng and left without saying anything. "You should know that Old Li wouldn't dare to do this to me even if he had 10 times the courage," Chu Feng said calmly. Lu Tong was silent and finally sighed. "The Temple Master probably doesn't have any evil intentions. He's just a bit radical and wants to crack the great secret of the path of evolution." Chu Feng said nothing and followed Lu Tong back to the Hollow Jade Temple. Before long, the Hollow Jade Temple Master appeared and apologized to Chu Feng. "The environment is vile and we lack peerless experts. I'm a bit anxious and wanted to find a solution. But I was too radical. I'm sorry, I hope you don't mind." Afterwards, he asked Chu Feng if he had contacted Mount Kunlun. Chu Feng nodded in affirmation. The Hollow Jade Temple Master informed, "The situation isn't good. There are rumors in the outside world that you've met with an accident and lost the opportunity to evolve. You might even become weak and become an ordinary person." Chu Feng replied calmly, "What will come will come. I can't hide anything." The Hollow Jade Temple Master nodded and patted Chu Feng's shoulder before leaving. Chu Feng frowned as he watched the Hollow Jade Temple Master's departing figure. He didn't quite believe that Yellow Cattle would be so careless. This matter shouldn't have leaked out from Mount Kunlun. Before long, Yellow Cattle contacted Chu Feng and told him not to worry and to wait patiently. It was currently looking for the old llama. This old monk's blood was extremely precious and contained Buddha nature. It had a miraculous effect on purifying the flesh and blood. However, the old lama was wandering around Tibet in search of some legendary Buddhist weapons in order to enter the Great Snow Mountain's ancient temple. Presently, Yellow Cattle had already collected the blood of all the great demon kings in Mount Kunlun. It had gone through a lot of trouble to accomplish this. Otherwise, who would be willing to reveal the secret of their blood? The more they understood, the more they cared about these things. "It's definitely not from Mount Kunlun. I think it's from the Hollow Jade Temple. I'll let Old Black and the others go ahead and take care of you. You must be careful now." Yellow Cattle became vigilant and reminded Chu Feng. After ending the call, Chu Feng thought for a while and found Lu Tong. He told him to invite all those who had sent their visiting cards. He wanted to invite everyone to a banquet. "Are you worried that this place will become a prison?" "Absolutely not." Lu Tong sighed lightly but still turned around and left according to Chu Feng's instructions. Chu Feng muttered to himself, "Since someone has leaked the secret, then I'll take the initiative to make it public and invite everyone to a banquet. Perhaps a new balance can be formed." On this day, a rumor caused a great commotion. Chu Feng's path of evolution had reached its end. The news spread like wildfire. Everyone was paying attention to the news and the world was in an uproar. At first, no one believed it and thought it was a great joke. But there were also some people who believed that this might not be a lie. That was because it had been circulating since yesterday, and was only within a small circle. Before long, the news was confirmed to be true. That was because Chu Feng had invited everyone to a banquet and publicly admitted that there was a problem with his body. There was an endless stream of carriages and horses in front of the hollow jade temple. Many people had arrived. There were demon kings from all over the world, as well as some corporate higher-up. All of them had come to pay a formal visit. The atmosphere of the banquet was quite odd. No one had expected that Chu Feng, who was at the peak of his power, would actually admit that he might become an ordinary person. Brother Chu, there's no need to say too much. I admire you as a person. Regardless of whether you've encountered a problem or not, you're definitely my friend. The white-haired, white-bearded old demon from Mount Changbai stood up and toasted Chu Feng with a cup of wine. This was a peerless expert with 6 severed shackles. He was quite famous in the northeast region. Some of the people who recognized him revealed astonished expressions. The weather is unpredictable and people have their ups and downs. It's no big deal. I believe Brother Chu will be able to endure it, another great demon king stood up and said. Following which, some of the corporate higher-ups also presented some precious gifts to console Chu Feng, saying that there was no hurdle he couldn't cross. Regardless of whether they were sincere or not, at least no short-sighted people appeared at the banquet. Everyone was very polite and no one offended Chu Feng. Finally, the group took their leave and left behind a pile of precious gifts. However, there were still some changes after that day. Needless to say, the outside world was shocked to the point that their eyeballs almost popped out. Everyone found it hard to believe, but they had no choice but to admit this fact. Chu Feng, who had risen to prominence like a comet and had achieved such a glorious battle record, had actually met with an accident at the peak. Henceforth, he would lose all luster and completely withdraw from the path of evolution. He had faded into obscurity. This was the sigh of the people towards him. In truth, the changes within the hollow jade temple were also visible. Chu Feng could truly feel it. Some people gazed at him from afar with odd expressions. Among them were a number of quick-witted boys and girls who had been very attentive during the past 2 days. They constantly ran over to help Chu Feng with various tasks. They all looked to be around 15 or 16 years old. The 2 boys were very handsome, while the 3 girls were exceptionally beautiful. They were intelligent and quick-witted. They were all mutants with considerable strength despite their young age. Brother Chu, I would like to ask you to accept me as your disciple. Finally, a beautiful girl blinked her large eyes and said. The others were either shy or bold. All of them expressed their desire to ask Chu Feng to teach them fist techniques. Chapter 308. After the first chapter was updated, some of my brothers were so excited that they wanted to bite me. I was so scared that my heart was beating wildly. I had to quickly write a new chapter. Among the young men and women, some were shy and sincere, some were lively and bold, showing their intelligence. They were indeed good seedlings, but the human heart was the hardest thing to see through. Even if they were young, Chu Feng could not make a rash judgment. Come, I'll teach you a fist technique. Chu Feng bowed and stretched his arms. His posture was healthy and beautiful. The faces of the 3 pretty girls were flushed with excitement and also a bit shy. This was the standard Xingyi fist. It wasn't the ancient manual he had obtained from Su Qing, but the one he had practiced at the Hollow Jade Temple. It was also one of the ancient schools. Chu Feng didn't disappoint them. He had indeed taught them a fist technique. His posture was perfect, and he had even improved it to incorporate the true meaning of Su Qing's secret manual. Learn this Xingyi fist and you'll benefit from it for the rest of your lives, Chu Feng told them in a serious tone. The youths practiced seriously. Their movements weren't bad and they were indeed very smart. However, Chu Feng could see the disappointment in some of their eyes, but they concealed it well. He sighed lightly and didn't say anything. As expected, they wanted him to teach them a breathing technique. He indeed had several priceless techniques on him: the Xingyi breathing technique and the thunderous incomplete technique. Any one of them would cause a huge uproar and cause rivers of blood to flow. As for the complete breathing technique Yellow Cattle had imparted to him, there was no need to talk about it. It was an ultimate technique even in the outer realms and was known to be supreme. Even fairies and divine sons from other realms would be envious after learning about it. They would either kill to prevent this technique from being leaked or fight for it and take it for themselves. However, he would never impart this technique to others. Yellow Cattle had imparted it to him through enlightenment. "Boss, what are you?" Ouyang Qing, Du Huijin and Yi Qingru had arrived. None of them could accept the news of Chu Feng's setback. As they saw it, Chu Feng was destined to rise after the upheaval and become the strongest expert on the continent. How could something like this happen at such a critical juncture? Over the past few days, they had been sent out by the Hollow Jade Temple to investigate the situation of the famed mountains. They rushed back as soon as they received the news. Their hearts were incomparably heavy. "Go and practice your fists by yourselves." The clairvoyant Du Huijin let the young boys and girls go to the training grounds while they sat down to accompany Chu Feng. How could this be? Although Yi Qingru was charming with her bright eyes and white teeth, she was currently very serious. She bit her bright red lips, unwilling to believe that something had really happened to Chu Feng. "It's nothing. At most, I'll just be an ordinary person. Fighting and killing is too boring. I'm already tired of it. It's simply not a normal life." Chu Feng was rather open-minded. He patted their shoulders and deliberately lightened the atmosphere. "All the great demons and peerless experts of the world were rescued by me from Mount Longhu. Even if I can't evolve and my strength declines, who would dare to do anything to me?" When the others heard this, their eyes lit up. They were worried about Chu Feng, but now that they thought about it, he did seem to be able to protect himself. During the Battle of Mount Longhu, Chu Feng had saved a group of fierce people. Anyone who wanted to touch him would have to think twice. "From now on, I'll feed the horses, chop firewood, and travel the famed mountains of the world. Of course, I'll also pick up girls." Chu Feng laughed heartily, saying that he wanted to live a normal life. He didn't want to see any more bloodshed and would no longer participate in those meaningless battles. The others were speechless. "Boss, how can you say that your battles are meaningless?" the clairaudient Ouyang Qing retorted. Yi Qingru combed her naturally wavy hair and softly reminded Chu Feng, "People's hearts are fickle, and the world is like frost. Don't be careless." Chu Feng nodded, indicating that he understood. The others were disappointed and frustrated. They felt pity for Chu Feng and were unwilling to accept this outcome. They could hardly accept this kind of result. In the end, they stood up and said that they would visit him every day. Chu Feng revealed a smile. "Don't think of me as weak and fragile. Before I became a mutant, I lived a good life. I was known as the campus goddess killer. Don't worry, even if I lose my status as a mutant, I will still live a carefree life." The others looked at each other in dismay. They weren't sure if Chu Feng could accept this, so they left with their doubts. Soon after, Chu Feng met up with Xiong Kuan, Hu Xing, and the others. In fact, the youths of the beast race had come several times already, but Chu Feng hadn't met them yet. "Now that I'm in the middle of a maelstrom, you guys should avoid arousing suspicion. Don't look for me in the near future." Chu Feng had a simple chat with them before letting them leave. "Brother Chu, I have a request." Not long after, a person from Eight Visions Temple arrived. It was an imposing young man named Zhou Kuan. It was said that he was one of the 2 strongest seedlings of Eight Visions Temple and had been heavily nurtured. "What's the matter?" Chu Feng asked calmly. "Brother Chu, this is a very presumptuous request of mine. It's like this. The Palace Master said that my psychic power is naturally strong, suitable for controlling objects, and can perform all kinds of psychic attack training. I want to borrow your flying sword to practice and try to tap into my potential. Using spiritual energy to control a weapon would naturally increase one's strength. However, such a weapon was not easy to find, and only a few had appeared so far. Zhou Kuan said that he was only borrowing it for practice and would return it soon. Sure, here you go. Chu Feng lent him the scarlet flying sword. At noon, another visitor arrived. It was a young man from Hollow Jade Temple, a distant relative of the temple master. He had boldly come to borrow the violet gold thunderhammer from Chu Feng. Borrowing weapons is a trend these days. Why is there another one? Chu Feng muttered to himself. His voice was not loud, but it was loud enough for the visitor to hear. Brother Chu, I'm just curious. I want to see what a magical weapon looks like. Can it shoot out lightning? In any case, you've already lent your flying sword to Zhou Kuan. Why don't you lend me the hammer for a few days? I won't lend it to you. Chu Feng refused because this young man was too casual. He didn't really need the hammer. The other party was a bit angry, but he didn't say much and left immediately. Black Boss, where are you? Why haven't you arrived yet? Chu Feng contacted the Black Yak. That was because he had calculated the time. The Black Yak and the Manchurian Tiger should be arriving soon with the Golden Condor Kings back. Yellow Cattle hadn't set off yet. They were waiting for the old Lama to return so that they could collect his Buddhist blood. However, the Black Yak and the Manchurian Tiger had already set off. Damn it, we were intercepted and almost died on the way. Damn it, we would have been in grave danger if we didn't have the Buddhist staff in our hands. We're currently recuperating in a snowy cave. Don't worry, we'll be there soon. The call ended. Chu Feng's expression was gloomy. He wanted to let go of everything, but in the end, he discovered that things weren't as simple as he had imagined. Feeding the horses, chopping firewood, traveling the famed mountains of the world, far away from battle and slaughter. That was too idealistic and simply impossible. There was no such thing as a pure land in this world. This was just the beginning, but someone had already predicted that the Black Yak and the others would come to Shuntian to see him. They had intercepted them on the way and cut off his backup. This was truly vicious and ruthless. Rock King. Chu Feng contacted the Golden Rock King of Mount Hua. In short, he was furious. He was going to use his connections to avenge the Black Yak and the others. That was because he could guess that the Black Yak and the others were definitely injured. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been delayed for so long and needed to recuperate. Senior Rock King, I need your help to kill some people. Following which, Chu Feng contacted the Mountain Tortoise Sect Master and asked for his help. Chu Feng kept on contacting experts. All of them were peerless experts he had rescued from Mount Longhu and owed him favors. Now, he was asking them to come out of the mountains and search for clues as to who wanted to kill his brothers, the Black Yak, and the others. He wanted them to attack with lightning speed and eliminate those people. Chu Feng reacted quickly. He immediately and violently asked a group of peerless experts to come out of the mountains. He wanted to blow up the matter. This wasn't only to avenge his brothers, but also to shake the tiger. Did they really think he was a pushover? Before long, Chu Feng once again circulated the mysterious breathing technique Yellow Cattle had passed to him. He tried to break through the black substance because he was truly unreconciled. It had only been a few days and there were already people who couldn't hold back and attacked his brothers. They wanted to kill the Black Yak and the others. This was too much. It was intolerable. In his rage, Chu Feng discovered that an astonishing change had occurred after he circulated the breathing technique. The black substance in his body was slowly transforming into a silvery white color. This was a rather strange scene. He urgently contacted Yellow Cattle to understand the situation. What was this unforeseen event? Chapter 309. Why not? It's silver right now. Chu Feng's pores relaxed, exchanging energy with the outside world. Silver light gushed out from the surface of his body. The black substance turned silver and mixed with the energy in his body. They blended with each other and were evenly distributed. Yellow Cattle seemed to be stunned and found it hard to believe. "What's going on?" Chu Feng asked in a low voice. It was certainly not simple to make Yellow Cattle lose his composure. "There's no need to say anything about the origin of the black substance. You already know that it's abnormally rare. It's definitely a rare treasure. As for turning silver, that's just a rumor." Yellow Cattle seriously informed him that transforming into a silver substance was very abnormal. Not to mention coming into contact with it, even seeing or hearing about it was considered a rumor. Because it was too abnormal, even demonic sages had never seen it change during the process of refining. They only occasionally heard of it when it was used by later generations. However, no one stood out to confirm it. It's said that the silver substance can make people achieve the golden body of Bodhisattva. There are also rumors that it can make the realm of Bodhisattva-level evolvers fall or even die. According to Yellow Cattle, this silver substance was a mutation, a variant of the black substance. It was unpredictable, and no one could say what kind of changes it would bring, because there were some astonishing legends. According to the handwritten notes of some ancient powerhouses, the silver substance had once allowed a small demon to finally find the road to sainthood. At the same time, there were even more shocking rumors that the silver substance caused the fall of a saint. Chu Feng's expression changed again. According to Yellow Cattle, the silver substance was full of uncertainty. It was impossible to predict what kind of changes it would bring. Perhaps it was like a primeval beast, beating the peerless genius into the mortal world. It was like a nightmare that would entangle the host for a lifetime until the host died. At the same time, it was also possible that this was an opportunity to become a saint. It gave people hope and led them to the other shore of light, ultimately achieving supreme result. Yellow Cattle was quite serious, so Chu Feng had to be careful and observe carefully. This silver substance was too strange. It was said that even the Bodhisattva and demonic sages among the evolvers could not necessarily analyze it thoroughly. This was because there was a lack of real objects and samples. Once someone obtained it, who would dare to announce it? He would probably be captured by the giants among the evolvers and used as a lab rat. Isn't this more serious than the black substance? My situation is even worse? Chu Feng's heart was in turmoil. Yellow Cattle comforted him and said, "You can't say that. There's no cure for the black substance at the moment. Once you come into contact with it at your level, you'll probably only be able to delay its outbreak. There's currently no one on Earth who can help you purify it. But the silver matter is different. It's a variable, full of possibilities," Chu Feng said. "In other words, the black substance in my body was equivalent to the contract of death. When the time was up, I would be done for. When the silver substance appeared, it was equivalent to reaching a fork in the road. I might die, or it might be worse than death, falling into a more terrible hell. Of course, I might survive and even live a good life. Therefore, the appearance of the silver substance will be accompanied by all kinds of possibilities. You must grasp it," Yellow Cattle warned. In truth, it was also quite distressed. This had long since exceeded the scope of what it could do. It wanted to help Chu Feng alleviate the situation and delay the outbreak, but it couldn't. In those legends, what did the people who possessed the silver substance do? Were there any secrets about it? Chu Feng asked. "Bits and pieces are useless to you. That's because it's rumored that the silver substance appeared on the 10 most powerful planet. The outside world hasn't seen it yet, and not many people know about it." Yellow Cattle had only found out about it after reading the notes left behind by the predecessors. This matter was too important. It involved the demonic sage and the secret of the fall of Bodhisattva. Whoever dared to let the secret of this thing leak out would probably draw the wrath of those supreme experts. The fewer things that could endanger them, the better. No one was willing to let others know. After ending the call, Chu Feng's expression was uncertain. From his point of view, the appearance of the silver substance was too strange and sudden. He had been circulating his breathing technique for the past few days without any improvement. He simply couldn't expel the black substance, and there were no changes within his body. But today, he tried again because of the violent fluctuations in his emotions. The result was a sudden change. It was too abrupt. He once again circulated his breathing technique and found that his body was indeed different. There was an inexplicable change which made him gradually excited. That was because the sluggish energy within his body had actually begun to flow again. It was no longer like before when he felt like he was stuck in a swamp with silver light gushing out of his pores. His heart, in particular, was gradually glowing as if it was made of silver. It was full of vigorous vitality and pulsating vigorously like a heavenly drum. On this day, the world was in turmoil. That was because some of the supreme experts had come out of their seclusion and occupied the famed mountains. They moved in unison. The golden rock of Mount Hua spread its wings and flew eastward, sweeping through the lands as if searching for something. The mountain tortoise of Kongtong, the oldest king-level entity, had been divining along the way. He had a mild temperament, but today, he announced that he wanted to kill some people. Next, sword radiance shot into the sky from the sword palace of Mount Shu. The two palace masters also moved out with their imperial sword technique. Later on, the old Taiji Grandmaster of Mount Wudong descended the mountain and headed north. Very soon, people discovered that the Mastiff King of Kunlun was heading east and the White Snake of Mount Taihang was swimming amidst the ice and snow. So many people had appeared, and all of them were top-grade kings. They were the most powerful beings in the east. What were they planning to do? Many people suspected that a great battle was about to break out. Could it be that the marine race had secretly come ashore and caused these experts to come out to avenge Mount Longhu? It was fine if it was just one expert, but this was a group of people who would be able to stop them if they wanted to wipe out everyone. Once they joined forces, not to mention a single power, even several top-grade powers would be destroyed. Finally, a small rumor spread. All the kings had come together to help one person. Are they trying to defy the heavens? A single person has invited so many experts. But this wasn't a secret. In the end, it was revealed. This was caused by Chu Feng. He had contacted all the experts and asked them to take action to hunt down some of the murderers. The Black Yak and the others were ambushed on their way east. Some experts wanted to eliminate them in a tyrannical manner, which provoked Chu Feng and caused him to invite a group of top-grade kings. Everyone was astonished and then drew in a breath of cold air. This was too big of a move. That was because characters like the Golden Rock King and the Kongtong Sect Master, who were among the top 10 experts of the East, had all been mobilized because of him. Recently, many people had been observing. They wanted to see what would happen after Chu Feng's mishap. What kind of changes would occur? Some people were worried while others watched with cold eyes. Some even rejoiced in his misfortune. They felt that someone would jump out to target him. But at this moment, all the powers were shocked. Even though something had happened to Chu Feng, the power he could mobilize was astonishing. He had actually made such a group of top-grade kings take action. It was too frightening. Everyone was pondering whether or not this group of people would flatten all the major powers in the blink of an eye. That night, the old tortoise of Mount Kongtong found a clue. His divination was a bit strange and frightening as he pointed out a general direction. Then, all the kings moved together and killed their way into Gansu. They followed all kinds of clues and killed their way to the frozen Yellow River. They broke through the ice and charged into the river. This battle was brilliant at first, but the process was short. There were indeed experts hiding in the river, but how could they stop the kings from killing them? The Yellow River Carp Spirit. It was the one who ambushed the passing black yak and the others. Before long, the news leaked out and spread to the outside world. This group of top-grade kings was too swift and efficient. That night they were rescued by lightning, flattened the carp's nest, and killed the culprit. They were powerful and tyrannical. Some people rushed over and saw the remains of the giant carp spirit on the shore of the Yellow River. It was sealed in ice and snow. The scene was somewhat terrifying, but at the same time it was full of intimidation. People discovered that there were also marine race figures. A walrus was actually hiding in the Yellow River and colluding with the carp spirit, but it was also killed. This made the creatures on the continent realize that even though the world of ice and snow was unsuitable for marine race travel, they still hadn't completely given up. 2 experts with 6 severed shackles were found and killed on the same day. This shocked everyone and caused many people who were ready to make trouble to give up. Everyone trembled in fear. They discovered that provoking demon King Chu was extremely troublesome. So many experts owed him favors. Once he opened his mouth, it would definitely cause a huge earthquake. The outside world couldn't calm down. There was an uproar as people discussed spiritedly. In their eyes, even though Chu Feng was about to retire from the mutant stage and return to being an ordinary person, they still couldn't afford to provoke him. This was still a character who could change the weather. The hollow jade temple fell into a period of silence. Chu Feng frowned when he received the news. That was because a white crane from the Mount Shu Sword Palace told him that various signs indicated that someone from the continent had come forward to ask the Yellow River Carp Spirit and the others to intercept and kill the Black Yak. However, the trail ended there. They couldn't find the mastermind. Chu Feng nodded to indicate that he understood. He knew that since those people had said the trail had ended, there was no point in pursuing the matter. At this time, his thoughts were not on this matter but on the changes in his body. It was simply too odd. That was because the so-called silver substance was constantly changing. Occasionally, it would turn black and gush with black light. This made it difficult for him to understand. Moreover, when it turned into the silver substance, not only did the energy within his body recover, but the flow was no longer blocked. Instead, it became abnormally smooth and even more tyrannical. But when it returned to the black substance, it was as if he had sunk into a swamp. Oscillation. Chu Feng felt that this was a type of fluctuation. When he turned into the black substance, he was at his weakest and had fallen into a trough. But when he turned into the silver substance, his vitality was even more vigorous than before and he had become abnormally powerful. Chu Feng was studying the silver substance. It was full of uncertainties and possibilities. Chapter 310. The silver substance was a variable. No one could predict its future. It had once caused a saint to fall, and it could also allow a bodhisattva to evolve. It was truly unpredictable. The main reason was that the level involved was too high. There were terrifying secrets within that no one dared to divulge. Otherwise, their entire race would be wiped out, and even their entire star realm would be destroyed. One had to know that the current rumors regarding the silver substance were only passed down in the 10 most powerful worlds. It was very difficult for outsiders to know about it. The 10 most powerful worlds had been constant since ancient times. It could be said that the appearance of the silver substance within Chu Feng's body was an accident. It was also an unspeakable crisis and fate. A single mishap would draw the attention of the 10 most powerful worlds. At that time, the consequences would be unimaginable. Boss, you're truly extraordinary. The outside world says you're crippled, but you've killed 2 experts with 6 severed shackles in the blink of an eye. This really frightened many people. The clairvoyant Du Huijin immediately contacted Chu Feng. It was already late at night and he was extremely excited. Following which, the Black Yak spoke to him and laughed heartily. "Brother, how delightful! The people who tried to kill us were dealt with by a single word from you. Haha, how delightful! That carp spirit tasted pretty good. We even went to the Yellow River to have a taste. The Manchurian tiger, the Donkey King, and the Golden Condor King were all satisfied. They were originally quite sullen because they had been ambushed and almost died. In the end, their brother had sent people to take action before long. Their great enmity had been avenged. The efficiency was simply too high. The outside world had long since boiled over. The effects of this matter were simply too great. At this time, evolvers from both the East and the West knew that Chu Feng was furious. He had mobilized the peerless experts of the famed mountains to kill this murderer. This caused a huge commotion. A person who was thought to be crippled actually possessed such great power. This truly frightened many people. For instance, some corporations had been intimidated by Chu Feng and paid a heavy price. They thought their chance for revenge had come, but now they had seen an even more terrifying side to Chu Feng. He didn't even need to take the lead in this battle, and the result was that the Yellow River carp spirit was killed. It was truly shocking, and many people were so shocked that their faces turned pale. They could only rejoice that they were calm enough and did not act rashly. Even if it was said that a phoenix was not as good as a chicken after losing its feathers, it was only limited by the circumstances. That night there was no peace in the four corners of the world. All the forces were seriously evaluating this incident. Chu Feng ended the call with his acquaintance, and began to study the silver substance again. This thing had no fixed nature and was constantly changing, which really surprised him. He once talked to Yellow Cattle again and asked if it could convert the silver matter at will. Yellow Cattle was stunned. It clearly told Chu Feng that the silver substance was rare since ancient times and would not change again. It had never heard of a special case like Chu Feng's. Both the black substance and the silver substance were extremely rare and precious. The latter, in particular, involved the death of a saint and the death of a bodhisattva. It was even more terrifying. Yellow Cattle told him that he had never heard of this substance having two sides. Usually, after mutation, it would be completely stable and would not continuously appear in two states. I feel that there might be a chance to sever the sixth shackle. Chu Feng was full of confidence when the silver substance boiled and his body glowed. Even his hair had turned silver. However, the duration wasn't stable enough, and it wasn't long enough. It was difficult for him to continue. That was because to sever the shackle with his peak strength wasn't a matter of 2 or 4 hours. At most, it would last for a night or even a day or two. His current state was too unstable. When the black substance corroded him, he would be weakened to the lowest point and might even fall from the king level. I'm invincible at my strongest, but I'll be miserable at my weakest. Chu Feng frowned. He had pondered and researched for an entire night to figure out the properties of this substance. He really didn't know why this substance was like this and why it had two sides to it. At daybreak, Chu Feng received a call from Yellow Cattle. It said solemnly, "Chu Feng, I've discovered that this problem is very terrifying. That silver substance most likely caused the death of a saint and ended up in this world. This also means that it has mutated once again on the basis of the silver substance." Chu Feng was dumbfounded after hearing this. In truth, he was a bit allergic to the word substance. Black, silver, and then mutated once again. Was this going to scare him to death? Was there even a way out for him? The silver substance had mutated once again? Outsiders didn't know about this, so he could only communicate with Yellow Cattle. He didn't know what the future would hold, but Chu Feng had a vague feeling that this substance would change the course of his life. Chu Feng still wants to live? What do you mean by dispatching peerless experts? He's just a cripple who doesn't have long to live. Just as the outside world was discussing this matter, a piece of news exploded everywhere. Someone spoke up and targeted Chu Feng. They had already come to kill him. This was out of everyone's expectations. Last night, the Golden Rock King of Mount Hua, the 2 white cranes of Mount Shu's Sword Palace, and the mountain tortoise of Kontong sect had just made their move and killed the Yellow River Carp Demon and the Sea Tribe's Walrus in a domineering manner. In truth, the battle had erupted as soon as this news was sent out. It was so fast that no one could react. Even the Hollow Jade Temple wasn't prepared. Snow swirled in the air and the world was dusky. The sun hadn't been seen for many days. This morning, the Golden Crow descended upon Shuntian and charged into the Hollow Jade Temple. "Chu Feng, get out here. Others might be afraid of you, but I'll kill you." The Golden Crow was accompanied by raging flames and dazzling flames. He burned the heaven and earth, turning the snow into steam and the silvery white sky into a boundless mist. He had arrived in a domineering manner to kill Chu Feng. His enmity with Chu Feng was no secret. It had arisen because of the Peacock King. The Golden Crow and the 9 Lives Cat had gone south to kill Chu Feng last time, only to suffer heavy losses and suffer a counterattack. Now that Chu Feng had been crippled, the Golden Crow had directly launched an attack. This wasn't a good sign. This was something that happened right after Chu Feng had mobilized peerless experts to kill the Yellow River Carp Spirit. He had chosen this juncture wisely. The Golden Crow wanted to tell the world that Chu Feng's so-called connections couldn't protect him, Zhou Quan. He could attack at the first opportunity and take his life. It would naturally be great if he succeeded, but if he failed, it would serve as an example. He would tell the world that the so-called protection of peerless experts was nothing. Everything depended on oneself. Boom! The Hollow Jade Temple turned into a sea of flames and was burned to ashes. A single strike had turned the world scarlet red. The scene was terrifying. "How dare you act so insolently here?" the Hollow Jade Temple Master shouted. He rushed into the sky and fought fiercely with the giant golden bird. Flames surged in the sky and rays of light splashed in all directions. "You can protect him for a while, but can you protect him forever?" the Golden Crow said coldly. He flapped his golden wings and emitted a torrential divine might. Bang! A golden divine bird swooped down from the sky and collided with the Hollow Jade Temple Master. Flames overflowed in all directions as if the firmament had exploded. "Who dares to cause trouble?" The one-armed 8 Visions Temple Master appeared, standing on top of a building in the distance. Very soon, the Peacock King, one of the top 10 experts of the East, had arrived. He was glowing brilliantly as he dispersed the wind and snow and stood in the air. He was now incomparably handsome. His face was flawless and more beautiful than many women. He stood proudly between the heaven and earth with his long purple hair flowing in the wind. "This king is here. Who dares act impudently?" the Peacock King coldly said. The roaming Jade Temple Master appeared silently with a powerful aura filling the air. However, a mysterious expert walked over from another direction. His aura shook the heaven and earth, and caused the wind and snow to swirl in reverse. He was boundlessly terrifying as he closed in on the Hollow Jade Temple Master. For a moment, the 8 Visions Temple Master and the roaming Jade Temple Master were blocked and unable to move forward. "I want to kill Chu Feng. Who can stop me?" the Golden Crow shouted. The essence flames of extreme yang surged out and illuminated the heaven and earth. The sun that had not been seen for many days seemed to have appeared in the sky and illuminated the entire city of Shuntian. He was ostentatious and tyrannical. 3 great demon kings had come to Shuntian and barged into the capital to kill Chu Feng. They were truly lawless. Chu Feng stood on the snowy ground and looked up at the sky without saying a word. Because of him, he had actually caused such a huge commotion. An intense battle was taking place in the sky. After the Golden Crow released the essence flames of extreme yang, even the powerful Hollow Jade Temple Master could only evade and not dare to face him head-on. In truth, Chu Feng had also chosen to evade the essence flames of extreme yang when he was fighting against the Golden Crow. This thing could incinerate any living being on Earth. The other two temple masters were blocked by the Peacock King and the other king, and could not move forward. I want to say that a crippled Chu Feng is not worth the three of you protecting him. You've already done your utmost. Don't force your way out and throw your lives away. You have to know that there are more than 3 kings on our side today. The Golden Crow coldly shouted. No one is allowed to harm Chu Feng within the Hollow Jade Temple, the Hollow Jade Temple Master shouted. Everyone nodded after hearing this and secretly praised the Hollow Jade Temple Master for his loyalty. Unfortunately, the Temple Master doesn't have a peerless breathing technique. Otherwise, the Golden Crow and the others wouldn't dare to be so impudent. It would be great if Brother Chu had taught them his breathing technique. That way we would still be able to stand at the apex without fear of the Beast Kings. The boys and girls whispered to each other as they glanced at Chu Feng. They were the ones who had asked Chu Feng to teach them a fist technique. Today we've come to kill Chu Feng. We'll do as we say. Hollow Jade Temple Master, you can't stop us. It was at this time that the 4th king appeared. He was also a Beast King, a snow-white pangolin. His entire body was glistening with silvery light as he soared through the air. Apparently, he was standing with the Golden Crow and Peacock King. They wanted to kill Chu Feng and were forcing their way over. The Hollow Jade Temple was in a dire situation without a 4th king. Brother Chu, can you teach the breathing technique to the Temple Master and the others? Otherwise, we'll be in danger. A youth cried out in alarm. Brother Chu, I feel that we should destroy the beast race's prestige. We can't let them act so presumptuously. Another girl spoke up. She blinked her large eyes and revealed a hopeful expression as she looked at Chu Feng. Chu Feng remained silent. His emotions were complicated. The youths were still talking about the breathing technique at this critical juncture. He could only let out a light sigh. At first, he wanted to use the dragon locking pillars to seal off an area, but now he didn't want to use them. Many people from the Hollow Jade Temple looked over. Many evolvers from Shuntian had also rushed over after hearing the battle. They were all paying close attention to this place. You think I'm weak and easy to bully? Then I'll accompany you in this final battle. Chu Feng looked up at the firmament as he spoke. Everyone was astonished. Wasn't there something wrong with his body? How could he still fight? Even the boys and girls in front of Chu Feng were amazed by the scene. After this battle, I'll leave the Hollow Jade Temple. I'll feed the horses, chop firewood, and travel the famed mountains of the world. I'll be a free man from now on. Chu Feng's voice wasn't loud, but it traveled far. Everyone was astonished, especially those from the Hollow Jade Temple. They all turned to look at him. Boom! The next moment, dazzling silver light gushed out from Chu Feng's body as he took the initiative to meet the Pangolin King head-on. Rip! The two came into contact within a breath's time. Chu Feng tore the pangolin apart like a scarecrow. Fresh blood rained down from the sky. Boom! The next moment, he soared into the air. His entire body was covered in silver light, and even his hair was silvery white. He flew several kilometers into the sky and attacked the Golden Crow. Thump, 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 a violent collision ensued with torrentially flames. How is this possible? The Golden Crow was astonished. This is the last of my power. I'll go into seclusion after using it. Chu Feng grabbed the Golden Crow. With a pft, a golden wing was swept up by the silver light and torn off. What? He still has the strength to kill the Golden Crow? The group within the Hollow Jade Temple was shaken. Chu Feng was exceptionally powerful. He tore off the Golden Crow's wing and engaged in an intense battle accompanied by a rain of blood. In the end, the Golden Crow couldn't even escape and was caught up. Chu Feng tore the Golden Crow's body into two and bathed in the Golden Crow's blood. He didn't rely on the Hollow Jade Temple, nor did he need anyone to protect him. He killed the enemy alone. At this moment, the world was completely silent. Everyone, vote for the holy ground at the beginning of the month. Chapter 3:11. Who wouldn't be astonished? Who wouldn't be trembling? Chu Feng stood tall on the battlefield. Dazzling silver light seeped out from his pores, including his hair. It was as if they were forged from silver, and his entire body was surging with silver energy. In the air, golden feathers dyed in blood fell. These golden divine feathers were extremely sharp. When they landed on the ground, they inserted themselves into the earth and rocks like sharp swords, releasing zheng-zheng sounds. Chu Feng tossed the two halves of a bird king's body onto the ground. A top-grade bird king with 6 severed shackles had fallen to the ground, dyeing the hollow jade temple red with its blood. He had killed the 3-legged golden crow with his bare hands not long after the battle began. The scene was deathly silent. Everyone was stunned. Was this really a person with a problem with his body? This result was truly frightening. How many people in this world could kill a peerless bird king on their own? Even the hollow jade temple master was unable to do so despite fighting for a long time just now. Now everyone was dumbfounded. Had there been a problem with Chu Feng's body? He had killed a top-grade king on his own. This didn't match the rumors at all. Not far from Chu Feng, a number of young men and women shut their mouths. They were at a loss of what to do and were extremely nervous. Just now, they were intentionally or unintentionally asking Chu Feng to impart a breathing technique to the hollow jade temple master to suppress the beast king. Otherwise, he would be in great danger. But now, everything had been reversed. Chu Feng had killed a powerful enemy on his own without anyone's protection. Within the hollow jade temple, those mutants who wanted Chu Feng to impart his breathing technique or gift him weapons felt uneasy and even fearful. Not only were there mutants from the hollow jade temple, but there were also those from the outside world who had rushed over after hearing the commotion. At this moment, all of them were filled with apprehension. Chu Feng's performance was simply too shocking. He could survive even without relying on the hollow jade temple master. He had dragged his problematic body and killed the enemy on his own without showing any signs of weakness. Apparently, this result shocked many mutants. Some of them glanced at the distant hollow jade temple master and then at Chu Feng. The contrast was rather obvious. The hollow jade temple master at his peak had said that he would protect Chu Feng, but he couldn't take down the golden crow. The battle had been going on for a long time without any result. When Chu Feng's life was in danger, he acted himself and killed 2 powerful experts. It was extremely shocking. Some mutants couldn't help but wonder if Chu Feng was too powerful, or if the hollow jade temple master wasn't doing his best. The more he thought about it, the more complicated it became. Chu Feng, who was bathed in a resplendent silver radiance from head to toe, looked like a god of war. Stepping on golden feathers, he flew past the gigantic corpse of the bird king and faced the peacock king in midair. The air exploded. The peacock king, with long purple hair and a devilishly handsome face, was extremely decisive. He spread his wings, broke through the sound barrier, and fled from Shuntian. Following that, the other king who had stopped the roaming Jade Palace master also transformed into his true form, a canary. He fled in panic and disappeared from Shuntian city. The 2 kings fled without fighting. This result shocked everyone to the point that no one made a sound. No one spoke for a long time. All the evolvers who saw this scene were extremely shocked. There was no such thing as an airtight wall. This was especially true for many outsiders who had rushed to the hollow jade temple and witnessed everything with their own eyes. The news spread and immediately caused great waves. This is godly. Is he going to defy the heavens? The outside world was in a state of fervor despite the swirling snow and ice in the morning. Everyone was discussing the strength of the golden crow. Many people knew that he was a peerless expert, but he had been torn apart by Chu Feng's bare hands. This shocked the world. Some people were guessing that there was nothing wrong with Chu Feng's body, and that everything was just an act to lure the enemy in and kill them. However, there were people who quickly refuted this. They were certain that there was something wrong with Chu Feng's body, because they had attended the banquet at the Hollow Jade Temple and understood the truth. Chu Feng said that this would be his last battle and that he would use up the last of his strength. Perhaps this is the truth. Many people agreed with this theory. There was indeed something wrong with him, but he was able to fight the final battle after putting his life on the line. The result was truly astonishing. Many people in the outside world were discussing the same question. Just how strong was he? He had actually killed the Golden Crow in such a ferocious manner. At the same time, a small number of people were doubtful. Had the Hollow Jade Temple Master really done his best to protect Chu Feng? He had relied on himself to kill the enemy at the last moment. This theory put the Hollow Jade Temple in a passive position. At this time, the young men and women within the temple were the most apprehensive and uneasy. However, Chu Feng didn't say anything and acted as though nothing had happened. Thump! Chu Feng lost control of his body as he took a step forward. The ground beneath his feet cracked and the silver radiance on his body disappeared. Black light rushed out of his pores as he lost control of his energy. He was rapidly weakening. This was something that had happened some time after the battle. Many people within the Hollow Jade Temple were bewildered. "How are you?" The roaming Jade Temple Master walked over. He was very tall, with thick black hair and bright eyes. "That should have been my last battle," replied Chu Feng. The one-armed Eight Visions Temple Master and the calm Hollow Jade Temple Master also walked over. They placed their hands on Chu Feng's body and began to examine him in detail. In the end, they were convinced that Chu Feng's current state was extremely terrible. The black substance mixed with energy had caused his strength to decrease sharply and his realm to fall. In terms of energy level, he has directly fallen below the king level. This was their diagnosis, and they were certain that there was no mistake. At their level, they could instantly see through the other party's situation as long as they touched him. There was no way to hide it. Big Brother Chu's body really has a problem. It seems that what happened just now was just the final radiance of a setting sun. He won't be able to display such power in the future. I think he'll leave behind his inheritance and let someone else take his place. The young men and women discussed among themselves and glanced over from time to time. How is he now? After the Hollow Jade Temple Master and the others left, the place quieted down. Lu Tong appeared with a worried expression. He then invited the people from the laboratory to examine Chu Feng's condition. They didn't draw his blood this time because they didn't dare to do so. They only used some instruments to measure Chu Feng's vital signs and found that he was much weaker than before. He's really fallen from the king level. This sigh. Lu Tong sighed. He had no other way. I've already said that I'm going to live in seclusion. I'm tired of this kind of life and want to change to a more colorful one. You don't need to worry too much, said Chu Feng. He was naturally going to leave. He had told Lu Tong clearly that he was withdrawing from the Hollow Jade Temple regardless of whether he could recover in the future. Lu Tong opened his mouth after hearing this but didn't know how to persuade Chu Feng to stay. That was because he also felt that the people in the temple were going too far. What could he use to persuade Chu Feng to stay? He turned around and left in a somewhat desolate manner. His figure was slightly stooped and aged. He felt mentally and physically exhausted. Naturally, the news couldn't be hidden. Chu Feng's departure caused a huge commotion within the Hollow Jade Temple. A number of young men and women rushed over at the first instance. They were somewhat nervous and anxious. They all tried to persuade him to stay and didn't want him to go far. Brother Chu, the outside world is a world of ice and snow. The beast race runs amok. There's something wrong with your body, and it's very dangerous for you to go out alone. It's better for you to stay. Chu Feng's expression was calm as he said, I also have many friends outside. It shouldn't be a problem for me to walk around. A beautiful young lady said nervously, Brother Chu, can you teach us the breathing technique? We want to worship you as our master. If we become experts, we can intimidate the beast race and follow and protect you. Yes, Brother Chu, we'll train with you and learn your breathing technique. If the marine race comes ashore in the future, we'll fight them in your place. The young men and women all spoke up. Chu Feng was speechless. His mood was somewhat complicated. In the end, he only rubbed the head of a young man and said nothing. He walked to the window and looked at the wind and snow. The black yak and the others should be arriving soon. Soon after, another group of people appeared at Chu Feng's residence. They were all mutants from the Hollow Jade Temple and the Eight Visions Temple. They actually wanted to learn the Imperial Sword technique from him. Brother Chu, we know we're being presumptuous and our faces are burning, but we have no choice but to brace ourselves and come. After all, you're also from the Hollow Jade Temple. We can't just watch as the beast race rises and our side weakens. At this time, they had already received definite news that Chu Feng's strength had fallen below the king level after his last battle. It was confirmed that he would be withdrawing from the world of experts. This caused some people to feel complicated. After all, Chu Feng was once so powerful that they were valued by all parties when they went out. They didn't dare to offend him lightly. At the same time, there were also some people whose hearts were in turmoil. They felt that Chu Feng's decline might be their opportunity. If they could obtain a breathing technique from him and learn the Imperial Sword technique, they might be able to become the second Chu Feng. Chu Feng was also moved as he looked at these people. He had originally wanted to pass down some things, but some people went too far and made him change his mind. The distant nephew of the Hollow Jade Temple Master, Yuan Hong, came once again. This time, he didn't come to ask for the violet gold thunderhammer but to borrow the diamond chakram on his wrist. Everyone knew that this was Chu Feng's most important weapon. It had an extraordinary significance to him. Brother Chu, rest in peace. In any case, you won't be able to use the diamond chakram in the future. Why don't you lend it to us and place it in the Hollow Jade Temple to intimidate the beast race? After all, you can be considered a member of the Hollow Jade Temple. This place has nurtured you, so you should repay the Hollow Jade Temple in the end. We'll be very grateful. There were a few people beside Yuan Hong who had followed him here. Their tone was gentle and courteous, but their intentions were the same. They wanted Chu Feng to leave the diamond chakram behind. Your appetite is too big. You've bypassed the violet gold thunderhammer and directly want my most important weapon? Chu Feng's expression sank. Not to mention that his condition was unclear. The substance within his body was changing between black and silver. There was danger, but there were also opportunities. Even if his future was bleak, he didn't necessarily have to leave these things here. He wanted to give them to Yellow Cattle, the Black Yak, and the others. Brother Chu, how great were your accomplishments when you joined the Hollow Jade Temple? You could only grow rapidly with the help and protection of the Hollow Jade Temple. You must know how to be grateful. The distant nephew of the Hollow Jade Temple Master, Yuan Hong, was very solemn. He seemed to be reprimanding Chu Feng as he advised him. After asking for the diamond chakram, do you want me to hand over my breathing technique and fist technique? Chu Feng asked coldly. Brother Chu, the Hollow Jade Temple is your home and also your backyard. What's the harm in leaving behind some techniques? It's not like they've fallen into the hands of outsiders. What's the difference between you and this place? One's loss, one's glory, one's glory. After the Hollow Jade Temple becomes stronger, even if you're no longer a mutant and your strength drops greatly, this place can still protect you, Zhou Quan. Is this your idea or the idea of the Hollow Jade Temple's decision-makers? Chu Feng asked. It has nothing to do with the others in the palace. It's just a suggestion from us hot-blooded youngsters. Brother Chu Feng, this is where your foundation lies. If we become stronger, you'll have a guarantee even if you decline to an ordinary person. Yuan Hong's words were sonorous and resonant. Scram! It was at this time that a large head with a black horn poked through the window. It appeared abruptly and stretched out a large hand, dragging Yuan Hong out of the window. Thump, thump, thump. In just a split second, Yuan Hong had suffered a vicious beating. The Black Yak, the Manchurian Tiger, the Old Donkey, and the Golden Condor King had arrived. Their bodies were covered in froth as they braved the ice and snow to rush through the night. They arrived at the Hollow Jade Temple in the morning and directly barged in. "You bastard! You dare disrespect my brother? Who do you think you are? What does my brother's rise have to do with the Hollow Jade Temple? Which step of his didn't rely on himself? On the contrary, he gave your Hollow Jade Temple many benefits. He helped you flatten mountains and villages and sent large amounts of king-level flesh for your research and refinement into king-level blood medicine. How did you get your cultivation? You must have eaten king-level blood medicine, right?" The Black Yak became increasingly angry as he spoke. He kicked Yuan Hong on the ground, causing him to scream miserably. His flesh was lacerated and some of his bones were broken. Naturally, the Black Yak controlled his strength well and didn't kill him. The Manchurian Tiger also rushed over and roared, almost scattering Yuan Hong's spiritual energy. "Even if my brother goes into seclusion, there's no need for your Hollow Jade Temple to pretend to be benevolent and righteous. It's enough for us to take care of him. Why would I need you? You think too highly of yourself. In truth, you're nothing but dog sh*t. The Donkey King also stepped forward and gave Yuan Hong a kick. "If we're talking about favors, Chu Feng saved the Hollow Jade Temple Master not long ago. Isn't that a great favor? But has he ever asked for favors from the Hollow Jade Temple? You're using some superficial old matters as a great favor, yet you still have the face to mention it? Using a small favor to ask for a big favor, do you still have any shame?" The Black Yak, the Manchurian Tiger, and the Old Donkey went up and gave Yuan Hong a good beating. Yuan Hong howled miserably as his bones were broken and his tendons snapped. The people who had come with him turned pale and were trembling with fear. "Let's go, brother. Let's leave this place and go to Kunlun. Let's go to hell with that dog **t Hollow Jade Temple." As they spoke, they were about to bring Chu Feng away from Shuntian. How could such a big commotion not alarm others? Many people appeared within moments and ran over to watch. Lu Tong had also arrived. The old man was so anxious that he was rubbing his hands together. After understanding the situation, he was extremely dissatisfied with Yuan Hong. The Hollow Jade Temple Master also arrived. He glanced at Yuan Hong and cupped his hands toward the Manchurian Tiger and the others. "Well beaten up. This good-for-nothing only wants to take shortcuts. He'll never amount to anything in this lifetime." The Manchurian Tiger and the others didn't want to have a falling out with a top-notch expert like the Hollow Jade Temple Master. They wanted to part ways amicably. As such, they were quite polite and cupped their hands toward him, expressing that they were angry just now and couldn't bear to see their brother being wronged. That was why they had attacked out of anger. The Black Yak was very direct. "We're going to bring Chu Feng away to a place with verdant hills and limpid waters to recuperate." The Hollow Jade Temple Master sighed lightly and shook his head. He wouldn't let them pass and said, "Chu Feng has contributed so much. How can we abandon him at such a critical moment? We must do our best to help him recover. We're currently searching the Taoist canons and various ancient texts for a solution. Now that we've made some headway, we must treat him." Chapter 312. Don't be in a hurry to refuse. Trust me, staying here is the best choice for Chu Feng. Where are the most ancient books? Can any other place compare to the National Secret Storehouse? The Hollow Jade Temple Master's expression was solemn as he dissuaded the Black Yak's group. According to him, there were even legendary books with great origins within the vast sea of book. Currently, the relevant people were searching for a solution to expel the black substance from Chu Feng's body. Although the black yak and the others were tempted, they trusted Yellow Cattle more. They felt that it was more reliable than the national secret storehouse. The black yak didn't want to fall out with him. You can continue to search through the books. If you find a solution, let us know. We'll be eternally grateful. Meanwhile, we'll take Chu Feng to Mount Kunlun to recuperate. There are also some ancient techniques in Tibet for him to try. The Hollow Jade Temple Master shook his head and said, "There's another reason why I object to Chu Feng's departure. Not long ago, we received a secret report that although the ocean is frozen and the depths of the sea are in turmoil, there are still people who are unwilling to come ashore." "What do you mean?" The Manchurian tiger was alarmed. The Hollow Jade Temple Master informed, "Reportedly, marine race experts are coming from the north. They might be targeting Chu Feng. Last time, Chu Feng killed one of the marine race's leading experts, the Octopus King, and almost killed the sea god tiger. He cut off his tail and incited a grudge against him. Someone wants to kill him. Especially after hearing that there's a problem with his body, they want to take this opportunity to cause trouble. Then all the more we can't stay in Shuntian. It's too dangerous here. We need to leave as soon as possible and go to Mount Kunlun." The black yak waved his hand. "Wrong. If you bring Chu Feng along with you, it'll be exactly what they want. They'll definitely intercept you midway. They've already calculated where you're going," said the Hollow Jade Temple Master. The black yak and the Manchurian tiger's expressions became unsightly. That was because they had been ambushed along the way. The Yellow River Carp Spirit and a walrus had almost killed them. The Hollow Jade Temple Master pointed in all directions and said, "I've already ordered people to bring enough weapons here just now. If more beast race experts attack, even if they don't die, they'll still lose a layer of skin." The next moment, various laser weapons appeared in certain areas of the Hollow Jade Temple. Some of them were vaguely aimed at the black yak and the others to intimidate them. "Don't aim randomly. This king will take it seriously," the black yak warned coldly. "Don't be rude," the Hollow Jade Temple Master reprimanded. Then, with a wave of his hand, Yuan Hong, who was lying motionless on the ground, was swept up and sent flying. He ordered the others, "Bring him away, lock him in the black prison, and let him reflect for a few months." "Uncle, I was wrong. Don't be like this," Yuan Hong screamed, but he was still dragged away. "You have to pay the price for your wrongdoings," the Hollow Jade Temple Master said in a deep voice. He then looked at Chu Feng and apologized, asking him not to take offense. "Temple Master Yuan, I think it's better for us to leave." The Manchurian tiger and the Donkey King also spoke. They felt uncomfortable staying here. Shuntian is a mess and not a good place to recuperate. "I think it's better for me to leave with my brother." The black yak spoke once more because he felt that leaving Chu Feng here was akin to putting him under house arrest. The Hollow Jade Temple Master's attitude was resolute. "No, Chu Feng is a member of our Hollow Jade Temple. He has contributed greatly, and now that he's in trouble, we can't abandon him. It's fine if you can guarantee his safety, but he might be ambushed and killed. I can't let you bring him into danger." The black yak was about to erupt in anger. Why couldn't he let them take him away? Everything was just the Hollow Jade Temple Master's speculation. Moreover, the black yak felt that Chu Feng was imprisoned here without any freedom to speak of. This was especially true after the infuriating events that had happened not too long ago. They had actually forced Chu Feng to hand over his fist techniques and breathing techniques, and even demanded the diamond chakram from him. This made one's heart go cold. Could they still stay here? Obviously not. "We must leave." The black yak's temper flared. Even though he knew the Hollow Jade Temple Master was powerful, he was still fearless. He raised his Buddhist staff. At worst, he would just smash this place into pieces. Brother Yak, you're too stubborn. Even if you don't think for yourself, you still have to think for Chufeng. The journey is too dangerous. If there's an accident, it'll be a heartache for all of us, the Hollow Jade Temple Master said in a deep voice. Chufeng stared for a long time before finally speaking. Temple Master, have you asked for my opinion? The Hollow Jade Temple Master looked at him and said, Chufeng, don't let your emotions affect your decisions. You have to believe that you'll have a chance to recover and become a peerless expert once again if you stay here. You're still young, so you need to be patient. The books in the country's secret storehouse are far beyond your imagination. There'll be a solution. No need, I've already made up my mind. I'll leave the Hollow Jade Temple right now. From now on, I'll regain my freedom and withdraw from this mutant organization. I'm tired and want to rest. The Hollow Jade Temple Master frowned. His gaze was somewhat sharp as he stared at Chufeng for a while before letting out a light sigh. Brother Chufeng, it's better if you stay. The Temple Master treats you with sincerity, and will find a way to help you recover. There's no other ancient method to inquire about apart from here. Some people tried to dissuade Chufeng, asking him to stay. However, Chufeng wasn't moved. He had made up his mind to leave. At this time, the one-armed Eight Visions Temple Master had also arrived and was looking at Chufeng. The Black Yak, the Manchurian Tiger, and the others were on high alert. With two peerless experts here, they had no choice but to be on guard. The consequences would be dire if things got out of hand. In the end, the Hollow Jade Temple Master sighed and said to Chufeng, Since you insist on leaving, take care of yourself. The Black Yak, the Manchurian Tiger, and the others glanced at each other in dismay. They were somewhat surprised because they hadn't expected the Hollow Jade Temple Master to relent in the end. This allowed them to heave a sigh of relief. Chufeng cupped his fists at the people of the Hollow Jade Temple and turned to leave. He braved the wind and snow and was the first to leave. Before leaving, the Manchurian Tiger suddenly stopped and turned around, saying, "Oh right, who else has borrowed weapons from my brother? Is there anyone who hasn't returned them? Take this opportunity to return them. I don't believe my brother will be crippled just like that. Hurry up, don't be too greedy." In the distance, Zhou Kun was somewhat embarrassed. He was also among the crowd and standing behind the Eight Visions Temple Master. At this time, he braced himself and offered a scarlet flying knife with both hands. Many people were moved. Nowadays, weapons that could be controlled with spiritual arts were few and far between and were exceptionally precious. The Manchurian Tiger wasn't going to be polite. He snatched the knife and rushed out of the building complex to catch up with Chufeng and the others. Let's go. After arriving at a spacious area outside of the Hollow Jade Temple, the Golden Condor King transformed into his true form. Chufeng and the others climbed onto his back as he rushed into the sky against the wind and snow. Just like that, they left Shuntian. The Golden Condor King's speed was much slower than usual due to the strong wind and snow. The whole world was covered in a hazy haze as the violent snowstorm raged on without end. Only an hour had passed and the Golden Condor King had flown thousands of kilometers when an unforeseen event occurred along the way. Several interweaving beams of light shot toward them. Goddamn-it, laser weapons! These are human weapons. Are they trying to kill us? However, their powerful divine instincts allowed them to sense the danger in advance. The Golden Condor King had long since evaded. "Don't worry, such weapons won't be able to do much damage in such vile weather," the Black Yak replied. Chufeng didn't say anything. He stared ahead and then glanced at the surroundings with a frown. It shouldn't be a human attack, right? Otherwise, it would be too obvious and infuriating. You have to know that Chufeng is here, the Donkey King said. Trouble's coming. The Manchurian Tiger's hair stood on end. He was an expert with 6 severed shackles. Especially after obtaining the breathing technique, His strength had increased explosively and his divine instincts had become even sharper. The Black Yak cursed, "Damn it, there really are marine race experts coming to kill us." The Hollow Jade Temple Master was right. We're going according to his script. A bronze tiger, no different from metal, flapped its wings coldly as it closed in. "You humans' weapons are truly inferior. It's best if we kill them ourselves," the bronze tiger said. Its body was emitting a terrifying aura as it hovered in the air. Its strength was exceptionally powerful as it stared at Chu Feng like a tiger watching its prey. "What's your relationship with the sea god tiger?" Chu Feng asked. "Not every sea tiger can be called the sea god tiger. What do you think?" The bronze tiger replied coldly. He was feeling rather uncomfortable at the moment. His bloodline wasn't as noble and powerful as the sea god tiger, so his attitude was quite cold. Not far in the distance, a strange fish was soaring in the air with sharp teeth as it stared coldly at Chu Feng's group. "I heard you're crippled. Just in time to take you away and become a prisoner in the ocean," the strange fish said. The third and final marine race expert had a human body but a pair of wings. This was a marine human. Although the marine race was rare, they were divided into several branches. For instance, the marine race expert Qian Yu from the Three Seas and the marine race expert Luo Tian from Mount Longhu, who was attacking the azure calabash in an attempt to snatch the bronze lamp. "Come over yourself, or do you want us to take you down personally?" This marine human was quite arrogant. His expression was cold as he spoke directly. His appearance was similar to that of a human. Apart from the gills and the extra pair of wings, everything else was similar to that of a human. "Descend," the Black Yak whispered. They couldn't fly and weren't proficient in aerial combat. The Golden Condor King landed ferociously, kicking up a large snowstorm. The three marine race experts followed suit and also landed on the ground. Boom. The next moment, the Black Yak immediately took action. He waved his Buddhist staff, causing it to erupt with Buddhist radiance. It was powerful and wanted to kill the three marine race experts. However, they sneered and immediately retreated to a safe distance away. "We've already investigated you before coming here. How many times can you wave this so-called Buddhist staff? Just hide for now. All of you will die." That marine human sneered. "Apart from Chu Feng, all of you will die." The strange fish nodded. The three marine race experts had long since severed their sixth shackle and possessed astonishing strength. The Manchurian tiger grinned. He might be able to block one of them, but he definitely couldn't deal with all three. "How about we do each other a favor and let us go?" the Manchurian tiger said to the bronze tiger. "You'll be the first to die." The bronze tiger revealed his killing intent and spoke bluntly to the Manchurian tiger. He knew the latter was the one with the highest realm in the group and had to be the first to be killed. "I'll kill you first." The Manchurian tiger was furious. "Kill!" The two tigers roared and charged at each other. Following which, the Donkey King roared angrily and waved his staff, forcing back the marine human who was closing in. It was just that the strange fish pounced over at this time. It was clear that it wanted to exhaust them to death. The marine race already knew that waving this staff would drain the user of all their energy. "Fortunately, I brought the stone fruit," the Black Yak muttered. He was prepared to eat the fruit to replenish his essence energy and fight to the death. "Let it be." Chu Feng spoke to stop them from acting rashly. He then called the Manchurian tiger back. In the end, the three marine race experts closed in step by step with cold smiles. They had long since landed on the ground. "Chu Feng, have you thought it through? Get over here or you'll suffer a fate worse than death." The marine human was the most arrogant. "Someone on the continent asked you to deal with me, right? Can you tell me which corporation or special power it is?" Chu Feng asked. "You're overthinking things." The marine human shook his head and raised his hand, indicating for Chu Feng to go over and capture Chu Feng. "Fine, since that's the case, I'll force myself to carry out one last battle. Chu Feng sighed. You can still carry out one last battle? The bronze tiger was bewildered. Apparently, he understood Chu Feng's matters very well and became vigilant at this moment. Boom! The next moment, Chu Feng's entire body lit up. His entire body was silvery white, and even his hair was the same. Then, he shot out explosively at 6 times the speed of sound. He was much faster and more powerful than before. Not to mention the marine race experts, even the black yak and the others were dumbfounded. That was because Chu Feng's eruption was too sudden and terrifying. This speed was simply too terrifying. Ah! The strange fish cried out miserably because Chu Feng had already pounced on it. He blasted it with his fist and blasted it into a bloody mist. This ferocious and tyrannical attack was terrifying. The bronze tiger immediately rushed into the sky. Their race's speed was extremely terrifying and he wanted to escape. Boom! Chu Feng tossed out the diamond chakram. He didn't even look and shot it out based on his intuition. He then chased after the most arrogant marine human. In the sky, the bronze tiger was blasted into smithereens. He looked like he was made of metal, but his blood splattered in all directions. Damn, this is too berserk. How divine! The Donkey King cried out oddly. At the same time, Chu Feng leapt into the air and chased after the marine human who was flapping his wings and trying to escape. Ah! The marine man let out a blood-curdling screech. He couldn't block Chu Feng's fierce and tyrannical strength. In the blink of an eye, he tore off one of his arms and even tore off a bloody wing. He was captured alive and dropped to the ground. Boom! Chu Feng landed on the ground with him in tow and smashed out with a fist, breaking half of his body to prevent him from escaping. Everything happened too quickly, like a torrential storm. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the marine race experts were dead and 1 was injured. Speak, tell us everything. Chu Feng looked down at the injured marine human. If everyone has a monthly vote, please vote for the Saint Ground. We're asking for votes at the beginning of the month. Chapter 313. The marine being was in a miserable state. The lower half of his body had been blasted off, and his right arm and one of his wings had been torn off. Fresh blood drenched the snow red. His eyes were cold and his face was full of pain. Even someone as powerful as him with 6 severed shackles couldn't endure such heavy injuries. His forehead was drenched in cold sweat which quickly froze in the wind and snow. Your eyes are so fierce. Are you still not convinced? Do you want to kill us? The black yak came over and gave him a kick after seeing his enmity. The kick sent him rolling 7 or 8 meters away. Speak quickly. Which power on the continent are you colluding with? The Manchurian tiger bared his fangs and brandished his large paws. It seemed as though he would slap him to death at the slightest disagreement. Chu Feng's entire body was glowing. The wind and snow were impervious to his body as silver radiance surged around him. He was like a god amidst the bone-piercing cold of the wilderness. The marine being glared at Chu Feng with unkind eyes and said through clenched teeth, "There's nothing wrong with your body. Everything was just an act. You tricked us." He felt great hatred in his heart. He felt that he had been deceived. This young human king was too despicable. At the same time, he resented the marine race for their inaccurate information. In the end, he had suffered such a great loss. Chu Feng shook his head and sighed. "You're wrong. There's indeed something wrong with my body. It's just that you were unlucky. I was barely able to carry on the last battle, but you managed to catch up and help us." **T. The marine being couldn't help but curse out loud. You already said back in Shuntian that you could only carry on the last battle. Now, your blood energy is clearly at its peak. His eyes were filled with hatred. He felt that this human brat was too shameless. However, he had just finished speaking when Chu Feng's body underwent a shocking transformation. The silver radiance gushing out of Chu Feng's pores was withdrawn and completely disappeared, following which a layer of black light rippled out, causing the intensity of his energy to decrease sharply. He immediately fell below the king level. You! The marine being's eyes went wide in shock. He realized that there was indeed something wrong with this brat's body. He was now incomparably weak. Sometimes strong, sometimes weak. This was the biggest problem with Chu Feng's body. Of course, there were some details that even he himself had not figured out. He still needed to go to Kunlun Mountain to experience them carefully. Every time the black light appeared, the black substance in his body would wreak havoc, wearing away at his essence, energy, and spirit, corroding his flesh and blood. If this went on for a long time, it would definitely be fatal. However, as soon as the silver substance appeared, everything was reversed. The powerful vital energy nourished his body, and his spirit and blood energy became shockingly vigorous. Are you going to tell me or not? Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. In fact, I can guess which powers it is. I just want to verify it from your mouth. Chu Feng pressed. The oceanic being sighed softly. He truly felt sullen. A crippled human youth had managed to finish off 3 of their great experts. This made him furious but helpless. Now it seemed as if they had come to throw their lives away. However, who would have thought that it would be like this? Under normal circumstances, the 3 of them were more than enough to kill the Black Yak's group and capture Chu Feng. Whether it was humiliation or slaughter, it would all be done in the blink of an eye. However, the information was inaccurate. The marine race was in charge of communicating with the relevant parties on the continent. Providing such false information was tantamount to harming them. Speak. The Donkey King borrowed the tiger's might and gave the oceanic being a kick. Just now, he had run far away to pick up the diamond chakram for Chu Feng. At the same time, he was secretly wiping away his cold sweat. That bronze tiger had died a miserable death. The diamond chakram had blasted him into pieces. An expert with 6 severed shackles had died without an intact corpse. The oceanic being gritted his teeth. He was rather unyielding and wasn't willing to speak. I can't be bothered with you. If you don't want to speak, then so be it. Chu Feng kicked out. With a bang, the oceanic being was torn into pieces and died just like that. Let's go, we'll be on our way, Chu Feng said. He knew what was going on and wasn't willing to pursue the matter at the moment. He needed to recuperate first. When the corpses of the marine race experts were discovered by the people in the outside world, it immediately caused a heated discussion. The relevant parties were all shocked and felt incomparably conflicted. I heard that 3 marine race experts went to kill Chu Feng's party, but were killed instead. Some people speculate that Chu Feng dragged his deteriorating body to fight one last battle. He killed the powerful enemies with great difficulty and then fled towards Mount Kunlun. What? Wasn't that the last battle? How come he's forced to fight one last battle now? Just what kind of state is Chu Feng in? The people in the outside world were all dizzy and dumbfounded. It was as if they had seen a ghost. At this point, some people firmly believed that Chu Feng wasn't crippled and that his body was still in good condition. Naturally, there were even more people who believed that this was the final radiance of the setting sun. Chu Feng was fighting with his life on the line. Something must have happened to him, and he wouldn't be so lucky next time. If he was intercepted again, he would most likely lose his life. Very soon, a sudden incident diverted everyone's attention and caused a huge commotion among the major powers of the human world. Everyone, be it the East or the West, could no longer remain calm. Of course, the ordinary people didn't know that they were being kept in the dark. At this moment, those who knew the inside story were shocked and terrified because the impact of this matter was too great. The space probe captured a clear image and transmitted it to Earth. It was a vast and majestic island floating from the depths of the starry sky. No one knew when it had arrived, and it was hovering in outer space. As it approached, the image became clearer and clearer. This was an emerald green island full of vitality, and could even be considered magnificent. There were wisps of essence energy lingering around the island, and the energy was shockingly high. Through special detection methods, it could be seen that every blade of grass and tree on the island contained exuberant Genesis chi. They were multicolored and shrouded in divine light. How was this possible? Many people were shocked. After the various countries knew about this, it also meant that the corporations and major powers of their own countries also knew about this. It couldn't be hidden from them. That was because capital was king. The domains that the corporations could control were too broad. This is a miracle. The whole world is about to be overturned. Even though the major powers of the various countries knew many secrets, they were still deeply shaken. They knew that the structure of this world was about to be rewritten. This was simply the descent of a legend. Earth was about to enter a completely different era. As the island approached, the scenery on it became clearer and clearer. One could see that there was a majestic mountain tens of thousands of meters tall with a golden waterfall hanging down from it. Additionally, there was a purple lake with mushroom clouds of energy rising from it. It was truly shocking. What powerful energy! This island looks beautiful like a fairyland, but it contains terrifying energy. The consequences will be unimaginable once it explodes. It was called an island, but it was actually quite large. It was more like a continent that had crossed over from the depths of the cosmos. There were buildings on the island with strange shape. Some looked like metal spheres, others like Mongolian yurts, and some like temples. However, there was no life on this floating continent. Not a single creature could be seen moving about. In the end, the news was leaked and even ordinary people knew that a huge divine island had drifted over from the depths of the starry sky. It was approaching Earth and was likely to fall. The signs were becoming more and more obvious. Boom! Finally, at noon the next day, the entire island began to glow. Purple mushroom clouds rose one after the other as the golden waterfall flowed in reverse, emitting a blinding light as it approached the surface. The scene was shocking. It seemed to be accumulating energy and erupting with an unimaginable power. It was as if a sun had exploded in outer space. On this day, the wind and snow on Earth stopped and the hazy sky was torn apart. This was the first time people had seen the sun since the snow calamity, and their moods were all at ease. However, the glaring light that followed made everyone shudder in fear. The satellites in space captured everything and transmitted it back to Earth, allowing many people to witness this process. A legend has arrived. Even the people in charge of the major corporations were shaken and their hearts were trembling. The island was glowing and burning as boundless energy descended in torrents. No one had expected a layer of radiance to pervade the tranquil earth and transform into bizarre characters. They densely covered the sky and blocked the island. In Kunlun, Yellow Cattle was astonished and muttered, "An evolver at the Bodhisattva level in outer space has violated the rules?" Boom! However, the final result was that the vast island, which was comparable to a continent, disintegrated in the sky. There were tens of thousands of mushroom clouds with terrifying energy that was enough to destroy the world many times over. Characters and symbols appeared in the sky above Earth. They were calm as they flickered again and again. In the end, the tens of thousands of terrifying mushroom clouds were annihilated by the characters regardless of whether they were golden, purple, or other types of multicolored energy. The enormous island disintegrated and turned into flying ashes. This divine island, that was powerful enough to destroy the world, was directly burned to ashes, and not much was left. What on earth can stop a divine island floating in the depths of the starry sky? At this time, the higher-ups of the major powers were all stunned. The news spread and many places were boiling with excitement. After the divine island disintegrated and was destroyed, Its core was a 10-meter-tall square piece of metal that resembled a Rubik's cube. It fell down while flickering with luster. It wasn't destroyed and rushed toward the surface of Earth, causing great waves. Many people were staring at it with anticipation and desire. What was that? Boom! There was a great earthquake in the southern sea. Not only was the frozen surface of the sea smashed through and split into pieces, but this area was also completely melted. It was like a meteor had fallen and was about to destroy Earth as it crashed into the vast ocean. On this day, the marine race went crazy. They rushed over from the other sea regions as if they wanted to get close. They all wanted that Rubik's Cube object. Although they didn't know what it was, they had a premonition that it was an extraordinary divine object that might be able to open a legend. Some people guessed that there was an inconceivable object hidden within the metal body, even a living creature. Along the way, the Black Yak and the others stopped from time to time. They were afraid of being intercepted again and worried that Chu Feng's unstable state would cause problems. As such, they took a detour and avoided all possible ambush locations. Only now did they approach Mount Kunlun. Yellow Cattle had already been waiting for a long time. He said as soon as he saw them, "Something big has happened. There's a golden bodhisattva level being involved." He told them that the divine island should have emerged from a crack in the starry sky. The creatures on the continent had no way to participate in the fall of that square metal body into the southern sea. Yellow Cattle decided to join forces with the old Lama and go to the ancient temple in the Himalayas immediately to seek fortunes. The chaos has begun. We have to hurry. Chapter 3:14. For a moment all the lands were in chaos. The mysterious object from outer space had fallen into the southern sea, but the people on land had no way to enter the ocean. People only knew that the southern sea was in chaos. The overlords of the marine race were fighting each other, all of them wanting to obtain that 10-meter metal object. What is that thing? Be it the east or the west, all the major powers could no longer sit still. Some were worried while others were envious. However, this had nothing to do with Chu Feng for the time being. They had arrived at Mount Kunlun and were warmly received by the group of great demons as if it was a festival. That was because Chu Feng had not only saved a peerless expert like the Mastiff King, but also the Snow Leopard King and the Horse King during the Battle of Mount Longhu. This was a life-saving grace. Coupled with their previous friendship, the kings of Mount Kunlun were naturally very friendly. "Come, brother Chu Feng, let's drink. Don't think about those troublesome matters. Even if you degenerate into an ordinary person, I don't care. Now that you've come, you must get to know my daughter. You mustn't miss her again. I'll call her back from the temple in Tibet. She can't just cultivate all the time." The Horse King had drunk too much. He had his arm around Chu Feng's shoulder and his shiny bald head reeked of alcohol. His enthusiasm was unbearable. The Snow Leopard King also consoled Chu Feng. "Brother, you should recuperate here. When the mist in the depths of Mount Kunlun disperses and the home of myriad gods opens, you might be able to recover there." Now, they had understood that Chu Feng had indeed encountered a serious problem and wasn't faking it. When his body was suffused with black light, the intensity of his energy had fallen below the king level. "The old Lama will be back tomorrow. At that time, we'll go to the Himalayas together to search for a great fortune. I believe we'll definitely be able to help Brother Chu Feng break the curse," said the Tibetan Antelope King. The kings thought that Chu Feng's body was tainted with evil spirits and didn't know the power of the black substance. Some people thought that entering the ancient Buddhist land might be able to suppress and dispel it. "Everyone, rest well. We will leave in a few days," King Mastiff said. He had a lot of prestige here. Chu Feng had saved his life in Mount Longhu. Prince Qing thought that if he went to that ancient temple this time, he must find a way to help Chu Feng solve the crisis. After the banquet was over, Yellow Cattle examined Chu Feng in detail and was also dumbfounded. It was just as Chu Feng had said, that mysterious substance was changing between black and silver. The next day, the old Lama returned with the old lion at his side. He had now been completely subdued and converted to Buddhism. The old lion was once known to be unrivaled and could be ranked within the top 10 experts, but now, he was very obedient and became the old Lama's mount. From afar, the old Lama really looked like a golden luohan. As promised, he cut his wrist and gave some blood to the yellow cattle. However, when the yellow cattle processed the blood of the kings and the old Lama and went to baptize Chu Feng's body, the scene was strange. The blood was burned to ashes before it could even get close. Although I knew the effect wouldn't be great, I didn't expect it to be like this. Yellow Cattle was distressed. He told Chu Feng that the substance in his body was beyond imagination and there was no solution for it at present. "Don't worry, I'll adapt to it slowly," said Chu Feng. He wasn't pessimistic because he would indeed be weakened when the black substance appeared. However, he could recover and even become stronger after the appearance of the silver substance. After coming to Mount Kunlun, he gradually found out some tricks. Perhaps this experience wasn't a bad thing for him. It might even be an opportunity. The black substance was corroding his body and spiritual energy, but from another perspective, it might be tempering him to remove the impurities. The silver substance improved his strength while the black substance beat him into hell. He was constantly changing between the peaks and trough. This was a kind of tempering. When the cube-like metal body descended from outer space, the clouds and mists in the sky were torn apart. The sun appeared, but now it was overcast again. However, the heavy snowfall became smaller and only became small snowflakes. This was a great fortune amidst misfortune. Only, no one knew when the sky would clear up again. The constellation vines that had previously appeared in the skies above the great cities were still full of vitality in the wind and snow. They were still alive and didn't fear the cold. Moreover, during this period of time, there were rumors that some people climbed up the vines again and obtained a few strange fist manuals and other things. There are inheritances from outer space above the divine vine. It was unknown when this news began to appear, but it became more and more intense during these 2 days. Moreover, now, it was already confirmed that the rumors weren't groundless. There really were creatures who obtained strange method. This triggered a huge commotion. What kind of situation is this? Chu Feng was puzzled. He asked the yellow cattle. In reality, the various great powers were also shocked and a bit uneasy. The inheritors of some worlds temporarily can't come over and are currently thinking of ways. They are looking for spokespeople to pass down a few methods and find some people to work for them. Yellow Cattle came to this conclusion. Isn't this going to cause chaos? Chu Feng frowned. Yellow Cattle said, "This world is too tempting." After the ice and snow recede, the famed mountains will recover and all kinds of divine trees will appear. There will definitely be many fruit. Even fairies and divine sons will be jealous. Naturally, they will manifest miracles and use methods to win people over to serve them. Chu Feng was unhappy. There was a problem with his body now. If the famed mountain's sacred trees appeared one after another and filled the branches with fruits, then this really wasn't the right time. Don't worry, everything will be fake if the master can't come over himself. The so-called spokespeople they're looking for won't amount to much. Yellow Cattle was disdainful. Why don't I climb the heavenly stairway and become a spokesperson to swindle some inheritances? Chu Feng laughed. That makes sense. The black yak nodded from the side. Yellow Cattle said, "What good things can they pass down? The true sect-guarding breathing technique can't be leaked. Don't worry about it. Let's go to that ancient temple. If the thunderous breathing technique really appears, it'll be enough to make the golden bodhisattvas in the outer realms jealous." 2 days later, more accurate news came from the southern seas. The so-called Rubik's Cube seemed to have magical powers. It contained the technique of a large serpent transforming into a flood dragon and many marine race inheritances. That place had become an underwater holy land. At this point, the battle outside the sea became even more intense. All races wanted to obtain a quota and hoped to get close to that place. After hearing the news, Yellow Cattle's expression became solemn. I feel that the metal chunk in the sea is extraordinary. It's even more valuable than the worlds behind the constellation vines. It might really be able to establish a marine race sect and recreate the Earth's holy land. That's incredible! Can we join hands and rush over and snatch that metal chunk? The black yak's eyes emitted a thieving glint. Do you have such great ability? Yellow Cattle shot him a glance. That was because, according to Yellow Cattle, the metal chunk could descend and float here from the depths of the starry skies. Demonic sages and golden bodhisattvas had to have paid a great price. This isn't an ordinary place. The ancestors of some supreme orthodoxies had once shed blood here, Yellow Cattle said solemnly. On the third day, another piece of news came from the southern seas and caused a sensation. Some characters appeared on the metal chunk, informing the various races to establish a new order at the bottom of the sea and recreate their ancient glory. The flood dragon race, the human race, the sea god tiger race, the mermaid race, the sea patrolling yiksha, the images of many major races appeared on the metal chunk. It can't be. The ancestors of these races worked together to produce this metal chunk? Yellow Cattle was shocked out of his wits. Naturally, he hadn't gone to the bottom of the sea and didn't understand the details. It was difficult for him to make a judgment. After the last piece of earth-shattering news from the southern seas, the entities on the continent could no longer sit still. It was said that the metal chunk was translucent and there was a woman within it. She looked like a corpse, but also like she was asleep. She was lying motionlessly within the metal chunk. It can't be, right? Yellow Cattle was shocked out of his wit. Finally, Yellow Cattle, the old llama, the mastiff monarch, and the other great demons of Kunlun set off for the Himalayas in search of great fortunes. Chu Feng stayed behind. After much consideration, the group didn't want him to take the risk. Whether we succeed or not, we should be back within half a month, said Yellow Cattle. Chu Feng also wanted to go, but he didn't force himself in the end. He knew that his body was unstable and would be in great danger if something unexpected happened. The great demons of Mount Kunlun set off hurriedly because they felt the pressure. Be it the inheritance above the constellation vine or the metal chunk at the bottom of the sea, they all felt that the outer realm entities couldn't wait any longer. They were all thinking of ways to seize the initiative, find representatives, and borrow external power to compete for the sacred tree on the famed mountain. The group of great demons of Mount Kunlun set off in secret. They didn't want others to find out. During this period, there were all kinds of rumors in the outside world. For instance, a certain marine race had obtained the ancient bloodline activation method from the metal chunk. There were also rumors that some outer realm entities had appeared in the folded space and were about to charge over. In the following days, Chu Feng didn't pay attention to the outside world. He studied the strange substance in his body and the domain heavenly book. It could be said that Mount Kunlun was the most suitable place to study this heavenly book. That was because there were obvious domains here that could release lightning. Back then, Chu Feng had been tricked into entering by the Woodpecker King and had almost died there. At the same time, there were other domains in the depths of Mount Kunlun. It was a mysterious place shrouded in dense mist. At first, Chu Feng was only feeling things out, but after several days, he actually forgot to eat and sleep and was completely immersed in it. He discovered that he was quite talented in the study of domains. Unknowingly, he had learned the basics and figured out many things. Brother Chu, you're too focused. You really don't have the slightest worry. The Snow Leopard King arrived. He didn't know what to say after seeing Chu Feng fumbling about in the depths of Mount Kunlun and caressing the towering cliffs. That was because 20 days had passed in the blink of an eye. It had long since exceeded the half-a-month yellow cattle, the old llama, and the others had said. However, they still hadn't returned. Ah, so much time has passed? Chu Feng was shocked out of his wits. Presently, his face was covered in dust and his clothes were tattered. It was as though he had been possessed during this period. He had forgotten everything else and was cut off from the outside world. At this time, Chu Feng was worried. Yellow Cattle, the Black Yak, and the others had left without returning. This wasn't good. This was a terrible situation for Mount Kunlun because there weren't many king-level entities left on the mountain. All of them had gone to the Himalayas. If these people were to disappear and never return, how could Mount Kunlun be defended? It would definitely be divided up and a new group of masters would be born. What was worse was that the marine race had arrived 2 days later and wanted to enter Mount Kunlun. What's the situation? Even the marine race has attacked Mount Kunlun? Chu Feng was shocked. He felt that he had become muddle-headed during this period. In order to study the domain heavenly book, he had really cut himself off from the outside world. Yes, a group of people has arrived. They might have found out that our Kunlun is empty and that all the experts have left. They've disappeared into the Himalayas. The snow leopard sighed. What do we do? There were no experts left on Mount Kunlun. The group of lesser beasts were all flustered. How many marine race troops have arrived? Chu Feng asked. A large group has arrived. The snow leopard's expression was solemn. I'll go and see if I can deal with them, Chu Feng said. The group of people on Mount Kunlun revealed odd expressions. They were somewhat helpless because they knew there was something wrong with Chu Feng's body. He was no longer a peerless expert. You guys don't believe me? Help me over. Maybe I can still fight the last battle, Chu Feng said. The group was speechless. Could he really fight? It seemed like he had already fought the last battle twice. Chapter 3:15. Outside of Mount Kunlun, the number of marine race experts couldn't be considered small. They were densely packed and numbered in the hundreds. Naturally, not all of them were king-level entities. Many of them were small marine race demons such as shrimp soldiers, crab generals, sea snails, and toads. However, there were over a dozen king-level entities. There were many different species in the ocean, and the competition was fierce. There was no lack of experts. Are there any with arms or legs? Hurry up and come out. A sea snail demon shouted. His race was quite talented. He held a conch shell in his hand and amplified his voice several times. His voice reverberated through the mountains, shaking the rocks and snow off the trees. The majestic Mount Kunlun was majestic and majestic. Especially after the upheavals, this place had become even more extraordinary. Each of the mountains was extremely majestic. Where are you from? We only ordered seafood from the south. There are penguins and walruses among you. Don't tell me you came from the north? We want a refund. No, we only want seafood from the southern sea. On the mountain, a small demon with a loud voice was in charge of replying. In front of Mount Kunlun, the group of marine race experts were so angry that their noses were almost crooked. Due to the ice and snow on land, they had specially selected some troops suitable for attacking in the snow. Now, after hearing the people of Mount Kunlun ridicule them and treating them as seafood, their expressions became unkind and murderous. They had decided to kill until rivers of blood flowed on Mount Kunlun and not even bones remained. These marine race experts had long since received the news that Mount Kunlun was empty and all the experts had gone to the Himalayas. No matter how secretive they were, the news had still been leaked. That was because Mount Kunlun wasn't the only place with experts eyeing the Himalayas. Back then, the Peacock King and the Golden Crow had also gone there. The marine race had collaborators on land and were extremely well informed. They had already understood the situation thoroughly. However, some of the marine race were overly cautious and wanted to probe further. Otherwise, they would have long since swarmed in and turned this place into a land of death. A group of lowest-level dregs who haven't even taken human form dares to speak nonsense to us? In a while, we'll chop you all into pieces and bathe Mount Kunlun in blood. Let's see which one of you can escape. A sea lion spoke with a gloomy expression. He was over 3 meters tall in human form and carried a pair of giant hammers in his hands. Among the 18 marine race experts, there were 4 with 6 severed shackles. This was an astonishing force. If they weren't worried that there was something strange about Kunlun Mountain, they would have charged into the mountain range a long time ago. They would definitely sweep through this area and kill all the living creatures. I think this place is empty. There aren't any experts here. Just send out a group of people and they'll be able to slaughter these small fries, said a conger eel. She turned into a woman with a graceful figure and a head of light yellow hair that scattered down. Her oval face was also quite pretty, but her eyes were a bit gloomy and cold. This was a marine race expert with 6 severed shackles. He was also one of the leaders of this expedition. She was extremely powerful. After releasing her aura, the entire snowy mountain began to rumble. It was as if a great avalanche was about to happen. This was the aura of a top-notch king-level expert. After releasing her energy, it was extremely terrifying. The lesser demons of Mount Kunlun were all terrified. Some of them were even paralyzed on the ground, shivering and unable to move. In the end, this was a world where strength spoke. Their realms were too low. All of them were in the awakening realm, far from severed shackles. They were suppressed, as expected of a group of dregs. Even the lowest level birds and beasts dare to provoke us. Throw them all into the iron pot and slowly torture them to death, a sea snake said, hissing and flicking out its tongue. It was brightly colored, feeling that it was beneath it to turn into a human. It moved about in the world of ice and snow, not fearing the bitter cold. It was as if a multicolored train was lying there. The lesser demons on the mountain were even more terrified after seeing such a terrifying giant serpent slithering over from the distant mountains. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Continue shouting. Don't get stage fright, don't be afraid. Chu Feng arrived and communicated with some of the lesser demons, telling them to continue the empty fort strategy. That was because he was originally in high spirits and wanted to start a massacre. In the end, the silver substance had disappeared before he could even reach the mountain gate. His entire body was covered in a layer of black light. This gave Chu Feng a headache. He was so excited just a moment ago, but now his strength was declining rapidly. This truly made him apprehensive. Have you guys forgotten the pain? You were already crying for your mothers and fathers back at Mount Longhu. Now you dare to come here and behave atrociously? Take a look at what this is. A lesser demon was holding a dazzling golden tail. It was hairless and covered in scales. It was emitting a breathtaking aura. This lesser demon was trembling. His legs were trembling and his teeth were chattering. Later on, he couldn't even speak fluently. The sea god tiger's tail? A commotion broke out among the group of people at the foot of the mountain. The sea god tiger was an incomparably powerful race in the ocean. Although they were few in number and only a few had the qualifications to be called that, all members of this race were terrifyingly powerful. They naturally knew about the incident at Mount Longhu. The sea god tiger's tail had caused quite a commotion. Although they noticed that the lesser demon was trembling, they thought it was because he was intimidated by the aura emanating from the tail. They didn't know that the lesser demon was actually afraid of the group of kings at the foot of the mountain. The expressions of the group at the foot of the mountain fluctuated. They all felt that the lesser demons of Mount Kunlun were quite unbridled. How dare they act in such a manner when there were clearly no experts overseeing them? They were worried that the old Lama and the others had returned and were waiting for them to charge in. They're just a bunch of trash, the worst dregs. What's there to worry about? Kill them all. Charge in and kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive, the eel said coldly. She was graceful and beautiful, but her eyes were sinister and her beautiful features were somewhat distorted. She waved her hand and said, "Trample Mount Kunlun." Yes, a sea race powerhouse responded. Immediately, a group of people galloped forward, wanting to kill their way into the mountain. On Mount Kunlun, the lesser demons' expressions changed. They were indeed playing the empty fort strategy and didn't have the strength to fight. The only person they could rely on was Chu Feng. They had promised to help him up for the final battle, but in the end, he had almost fallen down again and was still being supported. At this time, Chu Feng's face was both green and black. How could he be so unlucky? At this moment, the black radiance had yet to recede. Especially his forehead, it was a patch of black. This was truly a dark glabella. "Leopard King, use my bow and arrow to kill that brat at the front," Chu Feng said. "Very well." The Snow Leopard King drew Chu Feng's thunderous. An arrow made from a king-level beast's fang glowed brightly and flew out in an astonishing rainbow. The leading sea beast didn't even have the time to let out a wretched cry before exploding into pieces. It had been killed in one shot, both in body and soul. "Good bow and arrow," the Snow Leopard King sighed in admiration. One had to know that this was a king-level entity with 2 severed shackles. Yet, he had been shot to death, just like that. The Marine race members were all stunned. The leader of the small group had been shot to death. This caused the Marine race troops to be thrown into a panic. The others let out odd cries, some fell to the ground, and some immediately turned around to flee. "They're just a motley crew. They look like they have a lot of people, but they're actually not that big of a deal," Chu Feng said, trying to boost the morale. However, the people on Mount Kunlun understood that the marine race experts were not something they could contend against no matter how lacking in courage they were. The difference in strength was too great. "Idiots, what are you running for? Shooting arrows like this shows that they're lacking in confidence. If they really had the confidence, they would have opened the mountain gates and let us in," the colorful sea snake said. Like a train, it opened its bloody mouth and swallowed the first few people who had escaped back in one bite, directly eating them. This intimidated everyone, and no one dared to flee in panic anymore. "Kill them all. Break through Mount Kunlun and occupy this place. We'll enter the home of myriad gods and become gods together in the future. We'll wipe out all these dregs on the continent," the sea serpent shouted. "Let's see who dares." Chu Feng braced himself and stood out. He appeared on the snowy ridge and looked down at the marine race demons. There was no other way. He wanted to stall for time until the black light in his body receded completely. Then, he would start a massacre. "Chu Feng." "What? He's Chu Feng? He defeated the sea god Tiger and killed the Octopus King. I heard he single-handedly killed half of our marine race troops on Mount Longhu. He's a god of death." "He's not just a god of death. He's a demon king. He's killed too many experts of our marine race. The bronze tiger and the marine people also died in his hand." As expected, the marine race was thrown into chaos. Apart from the 4 experts with 6 severed shackles, everyone else revealed terrified expressions. "Don't be afraid. He's already been crippled." The conger eel calmed everyone down. "That's right. According to his character, he would have followed us to the Himalayas long ago if he was healthy. How could he be recuperating here in peace? Kill him," the multicolored sea serpent shouted. His eyes were burning with passion as he ordered everyone to attack. "Chi!" At this time, a fishbone spear flew towards Chu Feng, breaking through the sound barrier. It was a terrifying sight as it aimed straight for his head. Swoosh! Chu Feng evaded. His agility was not as good as before and he almost fell to the ground, staining himself with snow. "Let's go." The Snow Leopard King supported him as they fled into the mountains. That was because Chu Feng had buried 4 dragon-locking pillars along the way and laid down a ghostly labyrinth, waiting for these people to fall into his trap. The lesser demons of Mount Kunlun followed suit and fled into the mountains. The ghostly labyrinth was indeed effective, but unfortunately, it could only trap a portion of them. As for the sea serpent, the conger eel, and the sea lion, they all followed behind and did not charge forward. Previously, they didn't charge in because they were worried that Mount Kunlun was strange and had domains. Chu Feng's group fled towards another domain area, the Gates of Hell. Lightning could appear in this area and could kill king-level entities. Affected by the ghostly labyrinth, the people behind became increasingly apprehensive and slowed down their pursuit. Moreover, they began to follow their footsteps cautiously. Oh no! The Snow Leopard King felt a headache coming on. No matter, it's about time. Let me down, said Chu Feng. He had already bought enough time for himself and his body was starting to take a turn for the better. Haha, why aren't you running anymore? Have you given up all hope? The sea lion laughed loudly. His 3-meter-tall body was like an iron tower. The conger eel, as a woman, was originally very beautiful, but now she was extremely gloomy. Chu Feng, to think you'd have such a day. You've actually become a cripple. What do you say if I cut off your limbs and turn you into a human stick before parading you through the street? She was filled with hatred and wanted to use all kinds of vicious methods to humiliate Chu Feng. If he were to really fall into her hands, he would be destined to live a life worse than death. Have I offended you before? Chu Feng was astonished. Let me remind you that you've killed a marine race expert in Shuntian, said the conger eel. Oh, I've killed a conger eel who called himself the White Dragon. At that time, he was together with people from the Preaching Research Institute. Don't tell me he's your relative? Chu Feng smiled. He was happy to delay for a while longer. Roar! Heather roared loudly, causing the earth and mountains to shake violently. Snow waves surged up like an avalanche. The scene was terrifying. The most important thing was that his body was too big. He looked down at everyone, especially Chu Feng. How laughable. You've actually become a small fry. You're so weak that you can't even stand up to the wind. Today, I'll slowly torture you. What's the point of cutting off your limbs? I'll just cook your limbs. At this time, the Marine Race's troops rushed over. All of them were very excited as they stared at Chu Feng. This was the legendary killing god, the Great Demon King. Now, he was actually crippled and trapped here. If they could really tear off a piece of flesh from his body, it would be a shocking topic of conversation when they returned to the sea. All right, don't retreat. Leave everything here to me, Chu Feng said to the group of small demons. That was because the group of small demons was now scared out of their wits. Their faces were pale and all of them were in despair. Give me a hand. My body is still a little weak, Chu Feng said to a small demon beside him. That small demon was already crying. How could he fight in such a state? He couldn't even stand steadily as if his kidneys were weak. Ha ha, the Marine Races group was laughing loudly. Be it the top-grade kings or the ordinary small demons, all of them wore mocking expressions. They were incomparably happy and exceptionally excited to see the legendary demon King Chu in such an embarrassing state. Trash, small fry, you better roll over here, the sea serpent sneered. He opened his mouth and spat out a tongue that was over 10 meters long. It was absolutely terrifying. Silver light flowed over Chu Feng's skin. He was no longer worried at all. He said with a faint smile, "Who are you calling small fry? You're clearly all seafood. Grilled eel, garlic scallops, scallion fried sea cucumber, braised Australian lobster. I'm already drooling." When the Snow Leopard King saw him like this, he knew what was going on and was completely relieved. "Roll over here," the eel shouted. "Roll over here and accept your death." The other Marine Race members were also shouting and making fun of him. Ah, a seafood feast. You're so eager for me to kill you. Fine, I'll fulfill your wish. Chu Feng moved. His whole body erupted with silver light. Boom! The snow-covered ground exploded as he rushed over. It was simply terrifying. He had almost reached 6 times the speed of sound and was even more powerful than his normal state. Ah! The sea lion was the first to cry out. He bore the brunt of the attack and was blasted into pieces by Chu Feng's fist. At the same time, Chu Feng's body moved horizontally and his legs swept out like a pair of scissors. With a puff, the eel cried out in horror as her body was cut in half and she rolled on the ground. Thump! The moment Chu Feng landed on the ground, he cut off her neck with one palm strike. "Oh God, run!" someone cried out. Many people realized that Demon King Chu had returned. He wasn't crippled but was just pretending. "You shady bastard, you're too shameless!" The sea serpent roared and fled with a swoosh. The other marine race members were also terrified. In just a short moment 2 experts with 6 severed shackles had died. How could they not be terrified? All of them fled for their lives. Everyone felt that Chu Feng's body was fine and that everything was just an act. But how could they escape? The moment Chu Feng's flying sword shot out, it simply swept through everything in its path. A beam of scarlet light soared up and swept through everything in front of them. All the sea creatures revealed their true forms because they had all been killed. Boom! Chu Feng soared into the air and chased after the sea serpent. Amidst the blinding light, the rainbow-colored serpent, which was as large as a train, had its head torn off by Chu Feng. Its corpse fell to the snow-covered ground with a loud rumble. Trying to run? Chu Feng saw a scallop. It was the last expert with 6 severed shackles. It wanted to run away with the crowd. Boom! It had long since been targeted by Chu Feng. The impact of 6 times the speed of sound directly pierced through it and killed it. Pft, pft, pft. As the flying knife soared up, there were hundreds of corpses in the area. This was a massacre that shocked the demons of Mount Kunlun. Chu Feng was worried that his realm would drop at any moment. Hence, he held nothing back and went all out. He wanted nothing more than to kill all the marine race invaders. As such, the scene of carnage frightened the lesser demons of Mount Kunlun. Demon King Chu's display of might and his so-called final battle wasn't just for show. In the end, he killed all the marine race members. Not a single one escaped. Will the marine race go crazy? The Snow Leopard King's expression was odd. When the experts in the sea found out about this, they would probably jump up and down in anger. Even the lesser demons of Mount Kunlun believed that Chu Feng wasn't crippled and that everything was just an act. Chapter 3:16. In this world of ice and snow, the outside world was not calm at all. On the contrary, it was so heated that everyone was dumbfounded. That was because countless people were discussing a certain matter. Had Chu Feng been crippled? Many people were certain that there was absolutely nothing wrong with him, and that everything was just an act. Chu Feng, you're so lacking in morals. How many heroes of our marine race have died because of you? You've killed them all in a moment of carelessness. The marine race was in an uproar. Many people were so angry that they went crazy. They broke through the layers of ice in the sea and stirred up huge waves. Some satellites had captured a terrifying scene. Large numbers of marine race experts had gathered near the estuary of the Yellow River and the Yangtze River. Some marine race experts were roaring on land and listing Chu Feng's crimes. They were heinous and deserved to die 10,000 times over. The most shameless one in the world, the number 1 despicable human expert Chu Feng, you will die a horrible death. A portion of the oceanic race's troops were about to go crazy from anger. They had never seen such a shameless person. His body was clearly stronger than a flood dragon's, but he still said that he was crippled and lured his opponents to death. Again and again, he had deliberately buried mines and was waiting for the marine race to jump in. This was too obvious. Even the people on land were speechless. Everyone felt that Chu Feng was two-faced. He was clearly tricking them, and a big one at that. This time, the marine race is really miserable. Among the hundreds of troops, 18 king-level entities have died, and 4 of them were experts with 6 severed shackles. Add to that the bronze tiger, marine man, and strange fish king from before, Chu Feng has eliminated a powerful marine race force in just a few days. The people in the outside world were also discussing this matter. They all felt that Chu Feng was too good at disguising and had deceived everyone. Within Shuntian, the hollow jade temple master was rubbing his temples. He was feeling a headache. The 8 Visions temple master was also speechless. It was too strange. According to the heavenly master's letter, the appearance of the black substance should have crippled all those who had been corroded. Chu Feng, you are really good at acting. In the end, you dealt with so many experts of the oceanic species, as if you were cutting vegetables. I think that group of people in the sea must be furious. Even the white crane from the Shushan Sword Palace was teasing him. As expected of someone who acted in Demon Ox the Great Sage. His acting this time was too good. Even we were fooled. Chu Feng, you're shameless. If you have the guts, come fight me fair and square. You're too shameless. What kind of ability is this? The ocean race clamored. Because of the disastrous losses, the relatives and friends of the experts involved were all trembling with anger. Of course, the ones who felt the most sullen and angry were the sea race's organizers, as well as the people in charge of gathering intelligence and mobilizing the sea race to go ashore. They felt that they had been played miserably this time. The marine race had suffered such a great loss, and they had no way of explaining this to the giants of the deep sea. Each and every one of them was so angry that they wanted to swallow Chu Feng whole. He clearly has the strength of a peerless king-level expert, but he still has to be so despicable. I really want to hack him into pieces. Some people of the marine race were furious. Some people denounced Chu Feng and challenged him to a fight at the seaside. They wanted to fight him fair and square to the death. Those who were watching the liveliness didn't mind the matter getting bigger. All sorts of jeers rang out. Of course, there were also many people who ridiculed the marine race, saying that they could go to Mount Kunlun to fight. Chu Feng stood out at a timely moment. He felt that he was very innocent, so he stood out to express his feelings. He posted on his personal media platform that he hadn't used for a long time. You've wrongly accused a good person. I'm really just forcing myself to fight the last battle. At this juncture, he said such words with an innocent expression. The marine race couldn't bear it and wanted to bite him to death. Wrongly accused? Even the heroes of the continent were speechless. Could they be any more serious? Chu Feng, we're irreconcilable enemies with you. Wait until all the marine race tribes have received the inheritance of the Rubik's Cube. The big shots will eventually come ashore to kill you. Demon King Chu, an executioner like you, has the nerve to say that you've been wrongly accused. Can you be any more shameless? How many times have you said that this is the last battle? The marine race rebuked, cursed, but they couldn't vent the anger in their hearts. They had never seen such a thick-skinned person who would act so helplessly after swindling others. There was no one else like him. I feel that I really can't fight anymore. This should be the true last battle, Chu Feng replied diligently. Go to hell. The marine race cursed in unison. They wouldn't believe him no matter what. Many people on the continent were also cursing in secret. This was too excessive and shameless. Wouldn't this infuriate the marine race to death? On Mount Kunlun, the fragrance of meat assailed the nostrils. Both the great and minor demons were gorging themselves on all kinds of seafood and drinking some aged wine. The group felt extremely comfortable. Within the room, Chu Feng was eating seafood hotpot with the Snow Leopard King. He said while eating, "They don't believe the truth. Look, I've told the marine race the truth, and they're still cursing me. I don't think they'll dare come again. The Snow Leopard King's expression was odd. Not to mention outsiders, even he and the group of minor demons from Mount Kunlun didn't believe that there was something wrong with Chu Feng's body. Let it be, the marine race won't fall for it. Don't try so hard to swindle them. If you really force them into a corner and they go all out to invite the Elder Dragon King of the Southern Sea, something big will happen. Chu Feng was speechless. How come even the people around him didn't believe him? In truth, he soon received calls from his parents, the Wudong Grandmaster and the Clairvoyant. All of them scolded him for being too good at acting and worrying for nothing. Chu Feng was dumbfounded and cried out. He was speaking the truth. Who would believe that? Jiang Luoshan even called him to express her disdain. Mount Kunlun was completely silent. No one from the outside world dared to come and investigate. News of the old Lama's expedition to the ancient temple had been leaked. Some people felt that something big had happened to Mount Kunlun and they might even change owners. Now, it seemed that the mountain was still impregnable. Even if the great demons of Mount Kunlun couldn't return, no one would dare to provoke Mount Kunlun with Demon King Chu overseeing it. In truth, there were many rumors in the outside world that the old Lama and the Mastiff King had met with an accident and had died in the Himalayas. That was because they had yet to return after more than 20 days. In truth, Chu Feng was also anxious. He was worried that something had happened to Yellow Cattle and the others. This won't do. I must go and take a look. Perhaps I can rescue them. He wanted to rush to the ancient temple in the Himalayas. Chu Feng was studying the domain Heavenly Book amidst the ice and snow. A large number of tadpole characters were engraved in his mind. Afterward, he walked around Mount Kunlun and borrowed the geography to study domains and comprehend the various ghostly drawings in the mysterious ancient book. In truth, this was how he had been during the past 20 days. It was as if he had been possessed. He had gained some insights into the study of domains and had studied many symbols thoroughly. At this time, he had arrived at the gate of hell, where the lightning domain was located. He measured the land inch by inch and studied it in detail once again. That was because he wanted to rescue Yellow Cattle and the others. That place was quite special. There were domains and thunderous sounds. It was likely that it involved a large number of lightning symbols. As such, Chu Feng was studying the gate of hell on Mount Kunlun. This area gave him a great deal of inspiration. After all, it was a ready-made domain and it was easy to reverse engineer it. He found some strange symbols on the rocks and underground soil in this area. At the same time, there was a copper pillar entwined in chains. It could be placed deep underground and change the strength of the geomagnetic field, causing the lightning to become extremely terrifying. Chu Feng had explored this copper pillar hundreds and thousands of times. The veined patterns on it had almost been thoroughly studied by him. The next day, Chu Feng decided to set out immediately. This matter couldn't be delayed. Yellow Cattle, the old Lama, and the Mastiff King had left for so many days. Something might have really happened. Chu Feng's current strength fluctuated wildly. It wasn't easy for him to set foot in dangerous places, but he had no other choice. He was anxious and wanted to save people. At the same time, he had to rely on his domain techniques and not his own combat strength. This was a completely new challenge, and he had no confidence at all. Snow Leopard King, send me off. Chu Feng had long since discussed this matter with the Snow Leopard King. The two were about to set out. Your body is really... Only in the end did the Snow Leopard King believe that there was something wrong with Chu Feng's body. It's fine, let's go, said Chu Feng. With their departure, Mount Kunlun was truly empty. However, Chu Feng had slaughtered his way here and killed so many marine race experts in one battle. No one dared to provoke him in the short term. In the eyes of outsiders, Chu Feng was a swindler who was opening up his pockets and waiting for his enemies to enter. This time, Chu Feng and the Snow Leopard King moved out. They paid great attention to secrecy and were afraid that news would leak out and cause unforeseen events. The Snow Leopard King transformed into his true form and ran through the ice and snow. He carried Chu Feng over the mountains and ridges as though it were flat ground. He was born in the western region and understood the terrain too well. He could run even with his eyes closed. After the upheavals, the distance between Mount Kunlun and the Himalayas had lengthened. Moreover, there were countless mountains on the way and the snowy terrain was difficult to traverse. However, the Snow Leopard King still arrived on this night. If it was an ordinary beast traveling in this kind of weather, it would have probably fallen into the ice holes and fallen off the cliff many times along the way. The Snow Leopard King was too familiar with the terrain here. Everything went smoothly. The Snow Leopard King unfurled a piece of beast skin. On it were the coordinates left behind by the various kings of Mount Kunlun. A while ago, the group of great demons had already sent people to scout out the location before they moved. The Himalayas were majestic and extremely tall. Previously, there was already the highest peak here, and now it was even more unimaginable. After the upheavals, the snowy mountains here pierced the sky and were filled with snowy mist. One couldn't even see the summit from the foot of the mountain. It was as though it was connected to the outer realms. It should be in the vicinity. The Snow Leopard King had already transformed into his human form. He was a little worried about Chu Feng's body and asked if he wanted to rest. No need. Chu Feng shook his head. Moreover, he personally drew his bow and shot an arrow into the snowy mountains. This was a very meticulous move because he was using the thunderous breathing technique to make the bow resonate with him. When the arrow flew out, it emitted a thunderous sound. Boom! Within the mountain range, there was a thunderous response and a great avalanche. At the same time, there was also the majestic sound of a bell, vigorous and heavy. Chu Feng and the Snow Leopard King saw the Buddhist light. It was extremely bright in the night as it spread out from the mountain range. Clang, the resounding sound of the golden bell was like a warning to the world, cleansing one's mind. The Buddhist light enveloped many great snowy mountains. This place is really amazing. Chu Feng was astonished. Very soon, they arrived and saw an ancient temple buried in ice and snow. But after the Buddhist light shone, a corner of it was revealed. They saw the mottled traces of time, and also a bronze plaque. Clang! After arriving here, the bell rang once again, causing Chu Feng's whole body to tremble. His joints crackled as if he was being purified. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.